the Hawks Nest. My name is Brandon. Thank you for tuning on in as ever on a beautiful beginning of a spring day over here. Hopefully this sun has come out of. It's been a long winter for you and yours, and get a little bit of time to kind of warm up over there on the mainland, as we Islanders like to say. Well, the Seattle Seahawks are continuing their foray here into free agency, not jumping full on. It's not a dive swan off the top deck by any means, but it's a nice little cannonball. You know, it's nice. Let's get a little bit of splash as we now dive in and get really one of my more favored moves of this offseason so far, which is a surprising one for you who've listened to me in regards to the running back position and paying the running back position. And that is, of course, that Chris Carson has re-signed with our Seahawks. Happy day for many of you. I know that there are a ton of the folks that come in on the chat who really have an affinity for Chris Carson, nearly hold him to as high acclaim, it seems like, in certain respects, as Beast Mode himself. And, of course, Chris Carson is, at the very least, at his base level, a facsimile, a reasonable facsimile of Beast Mode. It's just been mainly the injuries and fumble problems that have been the main things kind of holding him back. But while I have been anti-signing Chris Carson this offseason, having to do with the fact we had such limited cap space, the fact that I don't like to sign running backs, just from the fact of you can get value in other places without having to spend a lot of money on that. But with that said, how can I be angry at $2.5 million as a first-year cap hit on a 2-year deal that essentially, if they get out in 2 years, it'll be a 2-year, $14 million deal. If they cut him next year, which I wouldn't expect them to at this rate, they'll probably just keep him on the roster. But $2.5 million is so far below what I would have ever thought you could get his first-year cap hit down to. Even if you signed him to, let's say, a $7 to $8 million deal, which is what I was somewhat anticipating here, you still probably would have been up in the $4 to $5 million a year range on the first year cap hit when you factor in the bonus. But I don't know how they did it exactly. This has been one of the odder contracts that I've tried to look and see what it is they're doing and how they're structuring this. This is definitely John Schneider at his maximum warlock stage. You know, he's whipping that wand around with this one. But that said, the reports as I dive further and further into this seem to confirm and say that this is a $2.5 million deal on this first year hit. And that is the most important part for me. You get it down to that low, I'm under the understanding that it's only a 2-year deal. I can make some peace with that. You know, at the end of the day, what this also does is it frees you up in the draft, because while I don't like signing a running back, to go get a running back where Chris Carson's skill set is, to try to get somebody with some talent as opposed to these back-end rounders that haven't quite worked recently, Travis Homer, DJ Dallas, would be that you'd have to probably jump on into the second round and maybe go get a running back at that place, or you're waiting all the way to the 4th round to maybe find a guy. And at that point, that's, I believe, right around the place where DJ Dallas was selected last year. You're going to be probably getting a commensurate value of running back, because as I look at this running back class, it's not that great. It's okay. It's not bad. It's not awful, but it's not that great. So it's good in this respect of you sign Carson, you free up potentially that second round pick, which might have gone to an interesting running back, being a Javonte Williams. But instead now maybe you can go back and concentrate back on the offensive line. There's been talk, maybe we can go and make a selection now of Landon Dickerson from Alabama, because you brought in Posick on the 1-year deal. Posick can be in there as the sort of starter until maybe Dickerson can really push him up around, you know, depending on where that knee is at, push him at some point, and then you've got a little bit of a hedge behind him. Again, just continuing to strengthen the offensive line. It opens up that second round pick a lot more further by making this kind of move, I think. You would have had to have been forced a little bit maybe into the box of having to draft that running back very high if you didn't sign this guy. But it's a good signing. Carson had a good year last year when he was in. I believe he averaged over his 4-yard carry as he has throughout his career. He was able to solve some of the fumble problems. The injuries thing did continue to pop back up again and again, but I would say that at $2.5 million, if we're getting 10 games of Chris Carson and 800 yards for that money, it's money well spent. Seattle has not been super active through the rest of this free agency period. It's been the 1-year deal to Everett, the 1-year deal to Posick. You've got Jackson on a trade. He's here on a 1-year deal. Keelio Witherspoon's on a 1-year deal. And Nick Bellore and Poona Ford you signed to 2-year deals. But as I open this up, and I'll get over there into the chat here in just a second, you guys, the thing that stands out to me and should stand out to all of you guys is the nature of the 1-year deals. This is the part that has me a little concerned and a little bit wondering what maybe is going on here to a degree. I anticipated there would be one-year signings. I did think that you were going to get a lot of those this year as players just tried to make do until they could get to the next cap year when hopefully the cap goes back up, when all that television revenue money that just kicked in finally fully kicks in on the cap. But I didn't expect those one-year deals to come at the start of free agency, but rather for those players that had come out into their market and come to find a quiet, cold market and instead went back to the one-year deal. Some of these one-year deals with the Posick, Everett, Jackson's just on a one-year deal in a trade, but Witherspoon are you signing kind of almost in the sub-first wave, sub-second wave of free agents to the one-year deals. And where this gets me a little bit concerned and in wonderment is because when you look at Seattle moving into next year right now, we currently stand with the 5th amount most of cap space in 2022. So when I look at that and see that, that's, if you're up at the 5th amount most of cap space, you tend to be one of those teams up in the resetville of things. You tend to be up in one of those teams trying to put it all together, not be on a team that's trying to cap off some things and touch off some things. It's a good place to be in. But my point on this being is that would it not have maybe been smarter understanding that amount of cap space exists to then take these deals and make them a little more multi-yeared in order to create more cap space for this season, in order to take advantage of this season's free agents? That's the part of this that has me just a little bit confused, because this comes on the back end of last season where Seattle showed a very similar vein. Your BJ Finney deal was a 2-year deal. Brandon Shell was a 2-year deal. Mayowa was a 1-year deal. Bruce Irvin was a 1-year deal. Mike Iapati was a 1-year deal. So it's sort of a season-by-season approach here, almost by the way that they're allocating this cap room. And when you look at that 5th amount of most of space I talked about, that's with the consideration that you have picked up Rashad Penny's $4.5 million option, and Bobby Wagner is still remaining on the roster, which I don't think I'm going to anticipate at this point. So if you were to lose both of those two players, in Bobby's case, you'd save $16.6 million, and in Rashad Penny's case, you'd save $4.5 million. And again, this is not in regards to this upcoming season. I'm talking about next year after the season has concluded. That would then vault you up into a top 3, top 2 with the most amount of cap space in the entire NFL. Why not take advantage of some of that? And hopefully this is what we will be seeing coming as the next step in this process, is them taking a little bit of robbing Peter to pay Paul, going to Peter in 2022 and saying, hey, Pete, buddy, just give us a little bit of what you got. You got a lot. We need a little bit over here. The cap got depressed. I hope Seattle's willing to do it. I would think that they haven't necessarily done it up until this point because they've not been pressed up to do it. Maybe it's Tyler Lockett trade or a restructure, or Bobby trade or a restructure. Go down the list. You guys know the names. So that's the one part of this, as I look at this offseason, that has me a little bit shaking my head, not knowing why the necessity to create that kind of cap space unless we are looking towards that dreaded reset button for next year. I hope it's not that. I hope it's just that they're going to be coming with these deals to move towards some of that cap space. But to me, it's the next type of domino that's got to fall here, as there are still some very valuable players out there in free agency, and it would be very helpful in order to create the cap space we need to take advantage of those free agents. All right, let's pop on over here into the chat. I appreciate you guys for hopping in and watching today. If you are watching this live now, or if you're watching it being recorded, please do slam on that like button. I know you got to move the mouse around and get over there and then click it. And why am I asking you to do stuff? Well, it does help the channel grow immensely, and I really do appreciate it. Dustin, number 1, got in, buddy. Ionatan Barbacar. I'm going to call you Barbacar. How you doing, Barbacar? What's up, man? Good to see you in the chat. Michael Parker. Hello, 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 hello. Dustin says, may Sean and Pete watch over us. May they watch over us all. Gino, going to miss David Moore. Dude was a stud. He was. He got paid pretty good money, Gino, with the Carolina Panthers. Scott Fritterer, the former front office member who went over to the Panthers this offseason, certainly knew what they had in him. And it's a good signing by them. I didn't want to pay him the money he got, but good on him. Arzo says, I want to sign Jadeveon Clowney. Zoz, I'm right there with you on that one. A Jadeveon Clowney, Carlos Dunlap sounds like a mighty inviting tandem. And I feel like between the two of them, you could squeeze them in. If you can create a little cap space, you could squeeze both of them in. I'd love to see it. Jay Hornsby, is Irvin still with the team? No, Bruce Irvin is currently a free agent. Dustin, your turn. Randall, how you doing, Randall? You like my intro music? I had a little, I'm always trying to get a little, always improving. Bash M, how you doing? Barbacar, I don't think we should push Tucci back considering we got DK and Adams to pay and maybe even Everett next year. Push. Oh, Barbacar says, I don't think we should push too much money. Sorry, Barbacar. I missed on seeing that there. Yeah, I mean, well, the one thing is with that Barbacar is when you have the fifth amount of most of cap space, that's a lot of cap space. It's almost dang near $100 million as we stand right now. If it goes up to $200 million next year, as I would expect the cap to go back to with the television revenue kicking in, then you have $100 million of cap space. So even if DK Metcalf signs, a $24 million a year contract, the first year hit of that will probably be around $15 million. And then if you have Jamal Adams on a similar $16 million, let's say, contract at that point, well, then now you've got that down on the first year cap hit of that down to, let's say, $9 million. So 15 plus 9, we got $24 million on the first year cap hit. You have $100 million in cap space. Take the 25 off the top. That's still about $75 million in cap space that you have to spend. So just moving a little bit of this money. I'm not saying mortgage the entire future. Just, take a second mortgage out is all I'm saying. Second mortgage. Washi, I like the Carson signing. I do too at $2.5 million. Initially, I'd heard that we might be getting hit at like $7 million this year, and that was not a spot that I wanted to be in. But at $2.5 million, I'm okay with that. Randall McDaniel says, I say 75-25 Russ stays this year. Don't count out the Jets. Yeah, I mean, I had hoped, as you guys probably saw with my recent video here, that we could put a bow on the Russell Wilson talks and that they would go away. But of course, Schefter had to come back out again this week and said, well, no. If a team would make a move, if a team would blow Seattle away with an offer, and I think that he's operating off of information that he's aware of and knows of, and potentially even as the Seahawks front office having fed it to him. Because as we look at the Chicago Bear offer, even after I made my video, I came to realize that it wasn't Mack that they offered, but Kyle Fuller, which is a laughable offer now. That goes from being an offer that's below par for what we should have wanted here to now be getting into the laughable stage of things. And if it's in the laughable stage of things, and they had to take a night to sleep on that because Coach Carroll reportedly needed a night of slumber in order to turn over that deal, then what happens if Miami comes in and they say 3 1s, 2 2s, and 3 3s? That then would be far superior to what the Bears offered and would maybe make Seattle think twice. Of course, Russell would have to still waive his no-trade clause to a defensive-minded team at that point. Who knows if that's happening? But hopefully all indicators are at this point that Russell is truly going to remain. He is seemingly giving all the indications of this at this point. Some of the signings that Seattle's done this offseason, going for a center, getting a guard, getting Carson back in the mold. I would expect them to do even more beyond that, but that's a step in the direction of appearing to at least do some appeasement towards Russell Wilson. So I hope it's that. And I agree with you. I'm probably about an 80-20 right now, Randall, maybe even a 90-10. I think they've gone through it clear on this, and I think if anything, it's more of next year that we have to be really worried about with Russell going, especially with, as I'm pointing to, some of this cap space that's due to open up next year. Gino says, Brandon, who do you think will be our third wide receiver this season? Antonio Brown. How about that, Gino? I know Russell's making a big play for him right now, and for the third time now in 2 seasons, he's making a huge run at Antonio. So I'd love to see them bring Antonio into the fold. Maybe a tough sell because Antonio's probably wanting to go to a place where he's a little more featured rather than a third wideout type guy. Yeah, I think Seattle's going to do something at that third wide receiver spot. I don't think that they're just going to sit there with Brett Swain going forward here. So I do expect them to find another piece out there. Reynolds might be an interesting piece also from the Rams. He's out there. A lot of people have attached us with them, and we went for Gerald Everett. Would we not then probably be very interested in somebody that also Waldron's coached under before? He was a pretty useful receiver. AD37, hey, love your channel. Thank you, AD37. You do great. You do great breaking things down. I broke down some Seattle Seahawks draft stuff. Where can I send it to you? You can send it actually to the, you can send it to me on Twitter, SeahawksNester, so you can private message me over there, or you can do it up on the Discord channel. I got to update I think I got to update our link down there, but either two that works for you, AD37. So if you want, send it, let me know which way works best for you, and I got to update that link, so I'll get an updated link here over the course of the stream too for Discord, so you can pump it in there too. Washi says I was against it, but the way we structured the contract was beautiful. Yeah, you guys know me up, and this whole time I've been against Carson being re-signed because I did not think that you could structure something this way. I've expected the running back market was going to be fairly depressed, but let's face it, recent seasons, go back even the course of the last year, Christian McCaffrey's gotten money, Alvin Kamara's gotten money, Dalvin Cook's gotten money. It's not, there are some teams out there willing to pay guys. Most teams are hip and smart to the fact that you shouldn't, but there's still a good collection of guys getting money. Derrick Henry on top of that. So I expected him and Jones to at least get reasonably paid. I didn't expect him to break the market, but get reasonably paid. $2.5 million on a first-year cap hit and a 2-year deal that essentially washes out to $14 million is really not getting paid at that point. So I'm hard to be not happy with this deal. VHawk78, how you doing, VHawk? Thanks for kind comments there on the last video. I don't think I responded yet, but I appreciate it. Sean Hagan, is Seattle still a good team? Well, that's going to be a question. That's going to be the question here, Sean. I mean, I think at the end of the year, I was going through this exercise with my brother a little bit as we were talking this out. And, if you look at last year when Seattle ended up at, if this was like a Madden team rating, an overall Madden team rating, you were about an 89, Now, if you just look at the losses you initially take before we take the additions, right now so far, we might bring KJ Wright back, but you've lost KJ Wright. You lost Mike Iupati. You lost Hollister. You lost David Moore. Got a couple guys that went off the board. So let's say you lose 2 points for that. You go from an 89 to an 87. But then you add back in Gerald Everett, Gabe Jackson. We also lost Shaquille Griffin. So we got to factor that in as well. But then you factor back in Gabe Jackson, Gerald Everett, Achillea Witherspoon. To me, at that point, this brings us back up to kind of right where we were last year as we currently stand. It leaves room for improvement through the rest of the offseason, but we're probably in that 89-ish range right now where we're sitting. If not, it may be 88. So we're a good team right now. Are we a Super Bowl contending team as we stand right now? Not quite. Not quite. I would be very much a homer right now to say this is a Super Bowl contending roster where it's sitting right now. But add the right kind of keys and pieces, the keys and the pieces that we need here, and it can get done. That's been my contention this offseason, is that we're at a team that's not just wholly unable to get anywhere, that we've hit this glass ceiling and it can't bust past it. You can certainly bust past it. It's very reliant on you then killing the offseason, just destroying this offseason, laying waste to everyone. Have they done that so far? It's been okay. It's been pretty good. It's been pretty good in that direction, but it's not been all out yet. We've not seen that all out assault that I think we wanted to see to make that happen, because it's going to take aggressiveness, and that's the part that I'm waiting for right now. Jay Hornsby, how you doing, Jay Hornsby? What's up, bruh? Maxwell Stern, hey, thoughts on Carson and the AB rumor? Well, I just kind of covered the Carson thing. So Antonio Brown, I'd be in favor of it. Part of what I've wanted to do this offseason is, even if this is really, in all likelihood, Russell Wilson's last year with the ball club, because the dead cap space goes down, there's more teams maybe available to trade from him next year, a lot of other factors at play. Even if that's looking like more of the case, let's give this one more try. Let's try to make him happy. Let's try to bring him back in the fold. Let's try to make some moves with an eye towards maybe making Russell a little bit happy. If it fails out a year from now, if it doesn't work, if all that stuff goes out the door, so be it. Bye-bye, Russ. Okay. But if it does work, maybe you can mend these bridges towards a future of the next decade, Russell Wilson being your quarterback, and you finally solve the best way to build the team around him. That's the measure I'd like them to push towards, and I hope that they're pushing towards. But to do that, they're going to need to be aggressive. Antonio Brown would do that. I know Coach Carroll would have his share of worries about Antonio Brown and locker room problems and all that. This guy's nearing the end of his career. Not a lot of time left in the NFL. He knows he doesn't have a lot of chances if he messes up again. He's got to toe that line. He did a good job of it last year with Tom. I'd expect him to be able to do another good job of it again. The only thing is that can you talk him away from Tampa Bay, where I think he's from Tampa Bay, just won a Super Bowl in Tampa Bay. It's going to be a tough pull to bring him over. But him and Russ are fairly tight, and if Russ can get that sales job in, I would be very much in favor of doing it, Maxwell. Very much. Random McDowell says, big show, Brandon. That's right. Washi, is this a live stream or a video? This is a live stream, Washi. Jose Rodriguez, how you doing, Jose? Jane Hornsby, good to see you in here, Jose. Jane Hornsby, you think of Dunlap coming back? I'm hoping he comes back. I don't think that there's any guarantee at this point. I think it's such a fluid situation that making any predictions are going to be hard. There was an Instagram post the other night I saw on Reddit where somebody was hitting up Dunlap on his Instagram account, and they were like, bro, you need to come back to Seattle, facts. And then another Seahawks fan below him was like, please, yeah, you need this. This needs to happen. This needs to be what you did. And then Dunlap posted an emoji below it with a bullseye and an arrow going into the bullseye. So I don't know if we can take any indications from that it seemed that what they were saying was right on the mark, and hopefully he does. We've got to get some more certain pass rush here. I said at the start of the offseason, offensive line first, 2 capable, able pass rushers next, 2 veterans that can come in a little bit cheaper than to the top of the market type of stage of things. That's what I want. That's what I'm hoping for. Gino says, I just hope Carson can play a whole season. Oh, don't get greedy, Gino. You got him on a discount. You can't get greedy, my brother. Jays, what's up, Brandon? I watched the Footloose movie from 2011. I learned how to do some of the line dancing in like an hour. First time I'm actually going to try to learn how to dance in my life. Laughing out loud. Oh, I'll tell you, it was a long time ago back in my clubbing days. But there used to be some places you could go where there'd be like, I remember back in Everett, they had this hip hop club on the top and then the line dancing thing downstairs. It was a weird combination, but they have a lot of fun in those line dancing things and stuff. They seem like they all have a good time. It's cool vibe in those places. Azos, how is Carson only a $2.5 million cap hit? Also, what does dead cap mean? Well, Azos, when you understand it, let me know. I'd understood always when you structure a contract, you have to put at least the minimum base in there, being the $1 million base, and then structure the bonus on top of the base. But as I looked at the contract particulars in this, it looks like all of his first year deal is just simply base, which was news to me that you could do it that way. So that's what they're doing essentially, is they're just lowering down all that's hitting this first season is the base money, which was $5.5 million, I believe, or something along those lines, $5 million. So then you got the base money back up into the second year of it. Dead cap means that you have 2 things going on with a player in regards to a contract at any one time. You've got his cap hit, that's the amount that he's costing the team versus the cap. And then you have the cap savings. That means, or cap hit. So if you release a player that's just signed, for instance, a deal, the bonus money hasn't eaten off the contract yet. That means that when you release him, you're on the hook for all that bonus money now accelerating all at one place, all the rest of the bonus money. So if only 1 year's gone off and there's 3 years remaining, that's 3 years of bonus money that then accelerates immediately. What this creates is that means that you end up having more bonus money than you do base salary on a given season. This creates dead money, or a situation where it's not advantageous for the team to really cut that player unless they really want to get rid of him, because they're not going to actually save any cap space by doing so. I hope I explained that clearly. I might have been a little wonky. Why Dude Wise says Seahawks quietly winning the offseason, so far still have needs. They're on the right track to winning the offseason. I'd say you can win this offseason without having to make any major splash signing, which it appears to be the route that they're going to go, and I'm perfectly fine with. It is more reliant on you hitting every one of those moves then, where all of those moves are bringing you some production and return on the football field. But hard to look at any of the, let's see, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 moves they've made this offseason so far. Hard to be angry with any of these 7 moves. Gabe Jackson's not a long-term risk. 5th round pick, that's fine for a guy that upgraded your guard position. Posick gives you depth and a swing guy at the guard position. Everett's the move tight end you haven't had in recent years. Witherspoon has potential to actually be an upgrade over what you got out of Shaquille Griffin. And Nick Bellore and Puna Ford are meat and potatoes. So I'm good. They've got to do a little more, though. Like you said, they got to do more. Maxwell, yes, agreed. Only $2.5 million for a top 10 running back. That's robbery. John really worked his magic here. He did. He went out into the he went out in the middle of the night and like sacrificed a bunny and did some witchery. I don't know what he did. And Carson's market must have just been cold, which is understandable. Teams are going to look deep into Carson's game, and if they look past this year into previous years, they're going to get thrown off by the fumble problems. What if his fumble problems bounce back up and we just gave this guy $9 million? What if it just suddenly starts rearing its ugly head again to where it's like he gets the yips for fumbles and we're stuck with this guy at that point, and we just have to like ride it out and hope, and that alone would scare teams. You throw the injury side of it on top of it, which had reared its head this season, unlike the fumbles. I think it's just enough of a 1-2 punch to kind of push him down. It's their loss, our gain here. $2.5 million is a good rip there. Jay Hornsby, I think Carson's a lifer. Watch out, Penny going to rip this year. I like him as a 1-2 punch. I still maintain these guys are a great 1-2 punch. The key on this is utilizing Penny appropriately. And I'll tell you, I still get nailed all the time here on Twitter and YouTube on the comment section about, for instance, the video I just did on Penny, a couple of weeks ago where we were talking about his potential in this offense. And I think people really still do give him a little bit of a bum rap. If you want to hit him for the injury stuff, broken hand, ACL, and then last year some injuries based off the ACL injury, you're fully willing and you can do that, and that's fair. I can't argue against the fact that he's been way more injury prone than the clean medical history he was given when he left college. But if it's about production and it's about talent, that's where I take a little bit of umbrage, because this guy can do some work. He can be a home run hitter for you. He can be that which Carson is not. Carson's the grinder, 3 yards in a cloud of dust, drag guys forward, fall forward. Penny's the home run hitter, but you got to put him on the outside and the edges and let him work like that. I think Waldron's going to be a smart enough offensive coordinator to take advantage of that. I think it takes kind of really just frankly, a little bit of a just dumb offensive coordinator not to take advantage of this at this point. I mean, you look at the statistics and it's stupid. Patriots Birds, Brandon, so you mean Posick could be just a draft hedge? I think so. Because remember, as much as I hate seeing Posick out at the guard position, he can play both guards positions. He has some history playing both guards positions. He didn't play him well, but with that said, I know Coach Carroll loves himself versatility within his offensive linemen and puts value upon that. So yeah, I would expect that this opens the door at that point into the second round for you to take a look at getting one of those centers. A couple of centers you could look. Creed Humphrey is another guy that they could take a look at there in the second round if they fall in love with him. He's got some stuff that they might like. He might not be as athletic as they might like, and there may be some things scaring him off from the centers in this draft. Anyways, Myers from Ohio State is another guy. But this opens that door. I think that I think that's probably the route that they're going to probably lean into, Peter, unless they just think Posick is going to, after getting full 1 year fully of playing center in the NFL, he's going to get better with now the experience under his belt of that, and they're looking at him with some upside. But either way, I like the idea of having depth. I will say too, guys, when I look at this draft, the more I look at it, we've got to come away with 2 cornerbacks out of this draft. We've got to. This draft is the Seahawk cornerback draft that we've seen ever in the last 10 years. It is amazing how many big, long corner. It's one right after another. I mean, you should be able to get these guys even in the 5th, 6th round because they're not going to be scheme fits for other teams. They're going to be too big for other teams. They'll be perfect, just perfect for us. And you could get 2 corners that could end up being your bookend corners for the next 5 years in this draft, later on in the draft legitimately this season. So it could also open the door for that too, Peter. They could go with a cornerback too. I mean, there's some... That's what this Carson signing kind of opens it up, in my opinion. It opens that second round pick up to being kind of anything. Maxwell says crazy Penny will have a bigger hit than Carson. Yeah, Penny costs more than Carson does next year. Isn't that crazy? Though it's not smart to necessarily be of the mind to release Penny, as many of you may think logically, as the next step, because he actually carries is talking about dead money. He carries the $2.5 million dead money. You're only saving about $1 million by cutting him. Maxwell says, I don't really like the Ethan deal. He's okay, just nothing special with him. Yeah, I mean, I would have liked to have upgraded the center position more than this, Maxwell. That's why I think that the team probably hasn't, as a thought process of maybe we'll go out there and we'll just, we'll just draft another one and we'll let competition rule out here. Let the veteran fight against the rookie, and if the rookie's a freak, the rookie wins out. You've got Gabe at the left. You've upgraded your offensive line at that point in the way that you need to do it. So it gives you some competition, which I love the competition aspect of coming back into the fray of things with the Seahawks team. It's something that's fallen away in recent years, but was more predominant early on in Coach Carroll's regime here. So I'd like to see that come back more to the fray. I think this does that. $3 million is not a big hit for a guy that can give you league average play at the center position, basically. Maybe a titch below, but right in that level of it. For league average play, $3 million for a center, that's decent value, Maxwell. Ahmad, how you doing, Ahmad? Why? Posick is better than most give him credit for. In his first NFL season at center, he can be okay. For sure, an upgradable position. Yeah, why? I think it's at that league average spot's about where I put him. And I think he's got some, maybe a little bit of upper end. We got to give him give him a little bit of time to think that he's just a finished product at this point, having only played one full season at the center position. I think a guy's got room to grow at that point, even if he's been in the league for a couple of years. And Sandy mixes, I love the moves, and none of these are overpay, low risks. None of these are overpay and are low risks. Do you love the moves, and why are we not restructuring? I guess maybe the first question bends into the second question. If we're planning to restructure and clear out more cap space in a variety of other areas and go whole hog on it in that direction, I'll love these moves a lot more. If we've just squeezed our cap space up to the place that we have no more room to work, I'm going to be very frustrated because you have holes at both linebacker positions. You still reasonably have somewhat of a hole at center that you need to kind of upgrade there. You need help really at the third wide receiver position as well. You need 2 pass rushers. And now you have no work. You got to get all that done in the draft with 3 picks and only 2 picks in the top 5 rounds. So I would be very frustrated if they were not to do that. But if they do those restructurings, I'll be a lot more happier with this move. If I look at the two I like that to me stand out above and beyond would be the Gerald Everett and the Carson move. Those are 2 that I really can get on board because I think with Gerald Everett, you look at him versus Jonnu Smith as a player, not that really far off of Jonnu, right around the same age. You're getting him nearly at 1/4 the cost of what Jonnu made out on the open market. The same thing here with Chris Carson, where $2.5 million is just ridiculous. Seahawks, Jose Rodriguez says every team is doing 1-year deals. Kind of. I mean, there's teams out, there's a lot more 1-year deals, Jose, than we've ever seen before. That's for sure. We're seeing more of them uptick this year than in prior years. But we're also seeing a lot of teams out there willing to give multi-year deals out as well. So maybe players are also kind of forcing this hand a little bit and saying, I want to have another shot at this next year after things get back to a normal state. But boy, it's if you had the only way to do it, then it was the only way to do it. But if there was a way to get these in more multi-yeared, just give them a little more bonus money to spread it out, it sure would have been nicer to create a little more cap space for this season because now we are right up against it. RZOs, are there any wide receiver 3s left, and who would fit Seattle's scheme? You got Antonio Brown's out there, T.Y. Hilton's out there still, I believe. Who else do we got? Trying to think of who else there might be out there. There's not a lot of other guys out there. There's Josh Reynolds of the Rams is out there. He would be interesting. The receiver market's really actually been pretty tough. Not a lot of those guys have gotten paid this offseason. It's been hard to get some contracts. I think a deep wide receiver draft and recent very deep wide receiver drafts have starting to kind of push their market down just a little bit. But it seems like the receivers are sort of kind of sitting out waiting for stuff to kind of click in to go. I mean, you look at like Juju, what he signed for and stuff, man, they're not getting paid out there. But they might also, as those, make a trade for a wide receiver. That's also possibilities. Maybe they can look to do something like that. Why says, I can see why many players want the 1-year deal. They get to hit the bigger cap market next year. Yeah, and it does appear with the television signing deal that just got through, that just clicked through, where the NFL signed a variety of new deals with a couple of different affiliates. At that point, you would expect that regardless of the fans not being able to come back to the stadium, and it looks like they're going to come back a little bit more into the stadium next year at least, that between those two factors, that'll push the cap back up. I've seen some forecasts showing the cap getting big time in the next 5 years due to the gambling and due to the television deals that are on the table right now. So if that happens, it's not as reliant on those fans coming back in the stadium, and you'd see an uptick later on, and smart by players to play that game a little bit. Insanity Mixes, do you even like re-signing Chris? I was hyped for Penny. Insanity, I'm still hyped for Penny. I think you can use a mix of running backs. Smart teams in the NFL use a good mix of running backs. It keeps them fresh. We've seen with Chris Carson, he can wear down over the course of the season when you feed him too many touches. He's such a hard runner that you've got to kind of limit him through the course of the year. And so having a running back, especially a running back of a different styling than Chris Carson, I think can be very helpful. So Penny's a guy I think that they're going to try to give one more shot to. The scheme still fits him. Is he going to be a future back? No. But at the end of the day, that's okay. He can still be an effective back if he's done the two-headed monster with him and Chris Carson. I think you can still see those two guys be, 1,600 yards collectively. Are we going to be mad about that if it's two guys who split that? No, we'll be super hyped at that point. So I think the potential is there with both these guys. The talent's there. It's just about getting the production on the field now. Randall says top remaining needs, ? For me, it's pass rush, third wide receiver, and corner depth. I would go with pass rush, third wide receiver, and then linebacker, Randall. Because right now you don't have a Sam linebacker, and your will linebacker is only an early down will linebacker. So you need a coverage will, and you need a Sam. Those are, to me, kind of important to a degree because you don't have them. Corner depth, I feel like, Randall, like I was saying, this draft is where you're going to be able to get that, I think. You've got the three guys who've got NFL, Trey Flowers, DJ Reed, Akeelia Witherspoon. All of them have started NFL games, a lot of NFL games, played a lot of NFL action, relatively young players. You're set at slot. Get me two young cats in the draft and stack them on top, and I think you're pretty good at that point. Rosalind Smith says, I really hope we can bring in AB. Me too, Rosalind. Makes Russell happy, improves the receiving core. I understand the locker room risk it carries, but what is the guy really going to get as far as a contract goes, as far as commitment in dollars? And if he steps out of line that point on a low commitment in dollars, you just cut him. I think that's just as easy. 283-128. Wouldn't mind getting an AB or T.Y. Hilton on the roster as a solid wide receiver 3. Me either, 283. I like those. I like either of those options, man, and I think that they upgrade you past what David Moore was last year. Larry Bird says 2 defensive ends or 1 defensive end and a cornerback offensive lineman. At this point, Larry, if it's like a type where I can get a Justin Houston, Clowney, Carlos Dunlap, Justin Houston combo, Ryan Kerrigan, Carlos Dunlap combination versus your other options there, I'm going with those. Because I really feel like this defensive line needs to generate pass rush. It's at the defense does not work without the defensive line unable to generate pass rush. And while it was great that Jamal Adams was able to set a sack record as a safety, he also had to get to those sack records, to get to the sack mark that was very close to the sack mark he had gotten in the prior year with the Jets. He needed double the amount of blitzes to get there. Seattle blitzed way too often to make that happen. If you can get 2, to me, legitimate edge rushers on either side of things, you can now calm the water's all calm. All the young guys behind them, the pressure's off of them. It becomes a competition at that point. Let the best couple of guys win for the rotational roles. The front line guys get it done at that point. It helps out the corners by speeding up the quarterback's clock and getting them up off their spot. In 2013 and 2014, the Seahawks led the NFL in pressures. And it's a significant stat and one that really should not be just thrown to the side because everybody goes, well, it's Legion of Boom. It's them out there being so sticky in coverage. No. You were rushing quarterbacks. You were speeding up plays so quick and so fast with the pressures that your guys weren't having to cover for as long. So I think one helps the other rather than the other helping the other. Offensive line would be great if we could address more. But at this point in time, for me, Larry, we've got to eventually here, with cutting Dunlap, we don't have any certain pass rushers. And when you look at last year and where the pass rush was before we got Dunlap into play, and when you look at it the previous year, outside of Jadeveon Clowney, you now have had multiple years here where generating pass rush has been a problem, and it's basically knocked out the foundations of your defense against offenses that you played to where they're able to just walk up the field on you. I think it's got to be held to that importance. Max says, I want Jadeveon, and hello, Max. I want Jadeveon and Dunlap, then either get Josh Reynolds and AB and then trade down in the draft and get Quinn Miners and some solid defensive back depth. Hey, Max, I love it. I love every bit of that. I have no qualms with any of that if that's the direction they did. I don't know if you're going to be able to go down with Quinn. I think the word's gotten out on Quinn. The belly shirt sold a lot of general managers. They love belly shirts, them general managers, and you show up that Senior Bowl with that rocking that lineman belly shirt, and they're like, look at the balls on this kid. So I think he is going to go in the second round, Max. You probably just have to pick where you stand pat on that one. I know that some people are putting him out in the third round, but I don't think that he makes it there. But no matter what, get all those guys, and I would feel a lot better about this off season. Washi, we doing a call-in? If we do, just DM me. I might, Washi, I've got to do a little bit of a truncated show today. So I'm helping out my mom with some stuff over on the other side of the island today. So we're not going to do the 5-6 hour marathoner today. Why, dude, why? We only have like 22 people under contract next year. It seems we need the extensions, not just for cap space, but to fill the roster. Solid point. Why, do why? Solid point. And let's not forget, we are also still missing a first-round pick next year. So we only have 6 draft choices as we currently stand going into next year's draft. So yeah, you need to get something done here with this. Sitting with just that many people and that much cap space doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And we got to allocate the resources somewhere. Why not allocate it for players that you desperately need on the roster for this year as well? James Glenn, I'm intrigued by the idea of bringing in Josh Reynolds as wide receiver 3. I am too. It's a guy you could look at. James as a guy who hasn't gotten as many opportunities. This is the same thing that you can apply really to Gerald Everett, where people will knock Gerald Everett and go, okay, he only has 400 yards of production last year. He's not really been a guy that's been pushing for the 1,000-yard mark from the tight end position. But it's also, well, the Rams offense distributes the football. I mean, everybody's getting touches. Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, they were featuring Gurley in there, and then they had a couple running backs they would feature at the same time. You got Higbee there as the other tight end that they would feature along with Everett. You had Reynolds and then Van Jefferson they brought into place. It was a very deep receiving core, just not as many opportunities to go out there and maybe shine. And that there may be some top end on this guy where if he gets a few more touches, there's room for that growth, room for him to become even a bit better of a player as he gets featured. I'm open to it as long as he doesn't cost a large amount, James. There are other receivers I'm a little bit more probably hot to trot on, but if that's the option where it's at, I'm okay with it. Daniel, do you think our O-line in its current state is better than last season? I do when you factor in development and continuity, but it all hinges on health. Yeah, it's undoubtedly better than offseason. There's a couple of things, too. Let me add one more word in there. No, you added the word. That's the key word there, continuity. Continuity has been one of the things that's been missing from this coaching staff and its understanding of offensive line. Because in the NFL, historically speaking, the offensive line is one that almost beyond any other positional group requires continuity for them to be at their best. You give them the 1, the 2, the 3, the 4 years of playing together. If you can keep 4/5 of them playing together in that way, it becomes where they don't even have to speak to each other in the way that they can pick up their blocking schemes and know what their responsibilities are pre-snap. They learn each other to that degree. And this is something that's been missing, frankly, for 10 years of Coach Carroll's regime here, where they're constantly in a flux of the offensive line and rotating around parts and moving this guy to that spot and that guy to this spot and this guy over that spot. It has locked down a little bit more in recent years. Dwayne Brown's anchored everything left. Posick got 14 games last year. He seems to be at least somewhat in there in that spot. Brandon Shell came in last year, and he's looking good. Damian Lewis was a rookie last year. You expect a second year of development for him to take another step forward. So there's room here beyond just the players getting more talented on the offensive line. The continuity aspect being Jackson's the only one you're adding, and he's a veteran, so you would hope he'd be able to come along relatively fast with what they're going to have him do. I do think the offensive line has gotten better. Is it remarkably better at this point? No, not by Gabe Jackson's addition. And we've got a little bit of a question mark here because the one thing I would wonder with Gabe Jackson is why was he initially moved off left guard to right guard? And was he moved off of left guard to right guard because he was starting to struggle in pass protection, as you might expect an elder left guard player to do? Because those left guards they're more often than not fashioned up against the Aaron Donald, Chris Joneses of the world, the 3 techs. And they're going to be one-on-one on them a lot of the times. They got to hold up there in that pass protection. And once those starts to fail, you kick him to right guard because he's going to have the center's help more often than not. And he's going to go against 1 techs more often than not. And so you feel a little bit better about that. So that's the one question with him, but I do think he's better when Iapati was last year. Iapati was done. Those ankles were being held together by Elmer's glue, and I think that does upgrade you. But it's a moderate upgrade. It's not a vast, superior upgrade. Daniel Pollock, but it does in Daniel, certainly health, and certainly at the left tackle positions where that health factors in most with Dwayne Brown. You need another 16 games out of that guy desperately. Maxwell, did you see that Russell asked the front office to re-sign Carson? I didn't, but that's great to see if he came in. It sounds like he was very much in favor of it. And part of the reason with some of the way that he's talked here of him feeling like he's coming back, that there's no more trade talks. That's where this general feeling's gotten from. It's come from as much with what Russell's done with little just tiny things that he's done. Gino, I hope Antonio doesn't just stick with Brady again, laughing out loud. Me too. And there's maybe he looks at, I know Russell's going to be able to get more out of my skill set. I fit more with Russell Wilson overall than necessarily with Tom, though I'm good with Tom. And, the Buccaneers got themselves a lot of receivers right now. He would be third here too, admittedly, but I don't know. Maybe they can sell him on it. Wait, Washi, it's not Brett Swain. It's Freddie. That's right. Freddie Swain, Washi. Sorry. I don't know why I keep calling him Brett Swain. My old brain has only one room for one Swain in it. Freddie Swain. Ahmad, DC is keeping and restructuring Lockett. Hard to say, Ahmad. I had thought that we would probably trade him at the start of the offseason. I haven't seen a lot of indicator why that would necessarily change. But certainly if you're able to get, Chris Carson down to $2.5 million as a cap hit, maybe you could restructure Lockett and get him down to a really low cap hit, and that they'll just make their peace with spending money on both Lockett and DK as they go forward. But I do still land on the part where I think that the fact we haven't heard any rumors of a restructuring or a new deal, that they're probably going to either plays out the last year of his deal or they try to make a trade. UE2K says, I agree that the Carson signing is a good deal, but still want a rookie running back, but hopefully this allows us to upgrade at center in the draft. Yeah, I'm okay with bringing in another rookie running back potentially, though it comes down to UE2K on this. You got 3 draft picks. Give me an undrafted free agent maybe that we can look at that point. Don't use one of your 3 picks on a running back at this point, because to me you could use a lineman, you could use a receiver, and that 7th round pick that you have could easily be a very good cornerback you're looking at right there to go pick a cornerback with some talent, even that deep into the draft. So I think it'd have to be an undrafted free agent for me to bring a rookie in on that. Randall says Hawks rejecting the Bears offer gives other teams a floor. They know what the deal won't get it done. I'm sure teams know more than a public as far as what we potentially want, but still a baseline. It does do that. This puts a bit. It does, and that's part of why I think there's a reason here to still be a little worried in the respect of this gives teams an ability to beat that. The Bears didn't come in with a hard offer. They didn't blow Seattle away, and I maintained because Seattle wasn't going to negotiate in this deal. It was going to be a deal where the other opposition comes in with their brass and they say, okay, we're going to give you this, and Seattle goes yay or nay. Because if they get into the negotiation war, well, then that starts to depress the value. Then it's just a certainty that Russell's going to be moved out of town. They wanted to always keep the door open for them, cracked open for them to be able to then come back in and say, we're just going to keep Russell for one more season, which is where I think they've leaned towards doing right now. But that doesn't preclude them from coming back in and saying, a team like Miami, 3 1s, 2 2s, 3 3s. That'd be pretty hard to turn down, wouldn't it? JSD, could we get Leonard Fournette as our second back? You could, JSD. The only thing is there's basically only $1 million savings in moving on from Rashad Penny. So it's not a significant portion to move on from him, but you could do it, I guess. And certainly with what, if you're able to get Chris Carson at $2.5 million on this year's cap hit, what's Fournette making at that point? It's got to be even less. Tim TK says Dunlap, Ace. All right, we're back. Sorry, I locked up there. I don't know what's going on with Streamlabs lately. You said Dunlap, A. Smith, Atkins, and Josh Reynolds trade Penny for cap space. Mike Davis, redo Russell Wilson's contract. Mahomes type deal, make it so. Russell's got to be willing to do it that way, Tim. He's got to be willing to stay here long term to do that if they can. It'd be great to see him do that finally. Be great to see him do that for sure. You only do save $1 million on trading Penny. So I don't know if it makes you're saving a lot of cap space by doing that necessarily. Especially if you then have to go sign a running back just back into the fold to make it happen, and the running back position then costs more this season than it would be by just keeping Penny as your number 2 running back, because you don't want to invest more resources in the running back position. That's the benefit of getting Chris Carson at the $2.5 million. Washi says, I want Antonio Brown, Dunlap, and some other number 2 bookend pass rusher. Draft Creed Humphrey, draft Israel Mukamua. Draft running back with the last pick. I'd be okay with that draft, Washi. I'm good with that. I like that. D-Boy, how you doing, D-Boy? What's up, man? Good to see you, anybody. Daniel Polak, are we done making cornerback moves? If we get any injuries, we're in trouble. Daniel, I would love it if we could get 2 cornerbacks in this draft. 2 cornerbacks. I mean, I'm scouting these guys, and I'm not kidding you, man. There's 13, something like that. Sea hockey, everything we want, everything that Coach Carroll, when he goes to bed at night and dreams for in a cornerback. When he goes to bed, he goes, I want him to be tall. and I want him to be long, 33-inch arms, 33-inch arms. And he's got to be feisty and want to tackle, and he's got to be good in zone. I mean, this is what he dreams about. This is his dream. So if he can come away with two of these corners that are just every box that they want ticked from a cornerback, these guys tick it. Get multiple this year. You'll be getting two multiple years. You could be getting two young guys who could round out into starters over the course of the next couple of years, and you could be nice and cheap and free and easy back there at that cornerback position. Be a smart of them to do this offseason. Sean Hagen, how you doing, Sean? What would you put our rank at in the NFC as a whole? Ooh, good question. I think that we're probably behind Tampa Bay at this point. We are still behind, I think, a bit Green Bay. And I probably put us about darn near dead even with the Rams right now as we stand. So we would probably be, in my opinion, I think we're the third team right now in the NFC, but I think we're tied with the Rams. So it's like 1A, 1B there. I think we're both neck and neck on that. Eduardo Bueno, how you doing, Eduardo? Good to see you in here. D-Mac, how you doing, D? What's up? Maxwell Stern says Russ seems happy on Twitter. It's good to see. A happy Russ is a good Russ. We learned that last year, so hopefully they've got him turned around on this one. I'd love to see it. 283128. Maybe trade Reed and then get Geno Atkins on a cheaper deal. You could. That would give you a little bit more of a pure 3 technique where Reed's a little bit of a tweener between the 1 and the 3. And Geno certainly would cost significantly less. The only thing that you hear about from the Bengals fans with Geno is that he seems to be pretty much done. There doesn't seem to be a lot of production there left in him. He would be a rotational guy for us. You wouldn't be asking him to play a significant amount of the snaps. And in his day, he was a good 3 technique in his heyday. The question, though, comes down to on that one, 283, how much does he really have left in the tank? And I'm not sure he's got a lot. Eduardo says, can anyone explain to me the void thing in Carson's deal? So here's what it is. They set up this is the part that I do understand about this, Eduardo, in the deal. It's a 3-year deal, but essentially from the Seattle Seahawks management standpoint, they turn it in, it's going to be a 2-year deal. So they'll void that last year out and it becomes a 2-year deal. Why do you do it to the 3 years? Because bonus money will set up to be over the course of the first 4 years of a contract. But if the contract's less than 4 years, it'll be over the course of a 3-year or over the course of a 2-year. So if you have $10 million on a 2-year, it's 5 and 5. 3-year, it's going to be 3.3, right? And thusly. So the way this works is they set the 3-year deal out on Chris Carson here in order to allow for the bonus money to structure out over the 3 years. So that instead of it being a 2-year deal where it's halves out on either of the bonus money, now you go out to the 3rd year, and that's what allows you to structure it just thus so. But they're intending to kill that 3rd year of the deal before it comes into place. And then they have a little bit of a dead money hit after the end of that 2nd year. It'll be a very tiny little bit of dead money hit, but it's essentially going to 2023 cap and sort of hitting that just a tiny itty bit, just a little pinprick in order to round the contract out just right. Give them a little bit more bonus money, a little more cash in hand. D-Boy says, how many years did Carson come back for? You see, it's a 2-year deal, essentially, D-Boy. He signed a 3-year deal, but that's just for that bonus I was just describing. Why? Currently, Seattle might have a 4th-round comp pick, 2022. JS likes comp picks. Another reason we can hope Dunlap resigns is that Seattle would still get that comp pick. True. Well, here's the thing with the thing. Yes, that is true. Why it makes sense. You are 100% correct, is that it makes Dunlap more of a target than any other pass rusher on the market, especially anyone that's a true free agency that wasn't waived, because the comp pick would not be affected. So that's a very good point on that. And you are right. With the fact that you re-sign Ethan Posick, that's your own free agent. You re-sign Nick Bellore, that's your own free agent. Doesn't count against anything. And Gabe Jackson's a trade, so that doesn't factor in. All you have right now is the Gerald Everett, Achillea Witherspoon measured up against the Shaquille Griffin deal, the Carlos Hyde deal, and the David Moore deal. So I might even argue that where you were at was the Carlos Hyde and the Achillea Witherspoon deal basically negate each other out. Then you've got the Shaquille Griffin deal, which gives you a third-round comp pick, but you sign Gerald Everett, which pushes it up to the fourth-round area of things. But then David Moore signs a deal. Maybe that pushes that down to maybe a third then. Maybe. Probably not, but maybe. Oh, man, here we go. Okay. PJ, good to have you back, buddy. Hope all is well with you. Rosalind Smith says, we definitely need 2 elite pass rushers. We cannot start the season off the way how we did last season. Agreed, Rosalind. We've been down this road 2 straight times in 2 straight years. This is the year that they should hopefully maybe fix their error. And both of these 2 failings in the previous years came out of the front office and Coach Carroll's overconfidence in their own pass rush and the development of their own young players. This has been where they've gone wrong on this. So it's time to change 2 straight years of it failing out, time to change gears. Because when you didn't change gears at the start of the offseason in the previous 2 years, when you went half-measure approach with the things, where you ended up with was you got into a desperate situation right at the start of the year and then having to make a trade, having to send out future draft capital to fix a situation that was fully fixable at the start of the offseason. Last year, you had $50 million to spend, and there were a plethora of pass rushers available out there on the market. There was no reason for Seattle to have to be left in a standpoint of having to get the very start of the year overpay and draft capital for Jamal Adams because they're so desperate to find pass rush wherever they can get it. That's what you need to avoid. In the prior year, of course, with the Jadeveon Clowney deal, where you'd only made the Ziggy Ansah move and drafted L.J. Collier and somehow thought L.J. Collier was going to give you all this pass rush in the first year, just like you thought it last year Darrell Taylor was going to give you all this pass rush in his first year. Rather than relying on young guys, let's get some more certainties. And that's where I hope that they do go with this offseason. We need 2 veteran pass rush, not starters, 2 guys that can rush the passer. They can just be specialists, rotational. That's all. But that's what we need is 2 of them. Northwest Finest, how much love from Tacoma? Oh, much love from Tacoma. Go Seahawks. Thank you, Northwest Finest. Appreciate you. Go Seahawks. Randall says, I believe Houston gave Britt more than we paid Posick. I like Posick more than Britt. I do too. I think Posick's a more natural center. He's just, I've maintained for a while, there's a thing you can just see in players, hard to quantify, and, oh, he does this perfect with his hands, he's got this technique and everything else. It's just, he's got a natural feel for the position. Going back to college, that's just, to me, a more better fit than Britt is. He's got some upper level still ceiling to him, Randall. I think after having 1 year under his belt, maybe a second year in center under his belt, he'll get better and that continuity factor coming into play, playing next to Damian Lewis another season. But I like Posick, and yeah, Houston's definitely right now trying to be the team that overtakes the Cincinnati Bengals, overtakes some of those franchises that have been the bottom of the barrel for years now to be that team, to be that new Detroit Lions. UE2K liked the idea of AB more last year. Now want a better wide receiver for the new scheme. Josh Emma Tarhebe or Ilmar Smith-Marset or even Josh Reynolds. Wouldn't feel bad about any of those guys. I still haven't looked at the first Josh you mentioned. I got to look at the tape on him, but I'd be okay with that. Marset had a blazing fast 40 day on his pro day. Blazing fast. Maxwell Stern, what's our record right now? So Maxwell, what's our record right now without any other additions? Anticipating just the draft coming up, we're probably an 11-5 team right now. But I'm anticipating there's going to be some more moves, or hoping there is. AI, any cap space for Dunlap? He was key to defensive improvement. They're pretty much up against it right now with maybe only a couple million of cap space as we stand right now, but there's a variety of ways they can create cap space if they want to, via a trade or restructuring with current players being Lockett. Hell, you could restructure Jaron Reed or Bobby Wagner or Quandre Diggs. So there's some moves you can make to free up some space if you wanted to, but they don't have a lot right now. They're going to be right at it. Mighty Joni Boy, what if we trade Reed for a 3rd or 4th round pick and then we sign Geno Atkins? We could on that. The only thing I might argue with this is that I don't know at this point if I know there's a lot of people not high on Jaron Reed in the Seahawks fan base, but is Geno Atkins 90% right now of what Jaron Reed is, both in run stuffing and in his ability to generate pass rush? I don't know that he is necessarily anymore. He might only be into that realm of like 80 to 83% of what you get in Jaron Reed. So you are downgrading your best pass rushing defensive tackle on a team that doesn't have a lot of good pass rushing defensive tackles for a guy who might be just a one-trick pass rusher who can't really do much against stopping the run. I don't know if I like that as much. But with that said, Mighty Joni Boy, you are getting more draft assets back. We need to get some more draft assets back. And if the Geno deal is going to be one where I'm able to sign him at $1 million or $2 million a year on a 1-year deal or something, maybe that makes a little more sense for me at that point. Maybe I can wrap my head around it, because then you're going from 8.6 to 2, and you're picking up the 3rd round pick. So maybe that makes a little more sense. Maxwell, do you think anything else will be done at center? I'm anticipating not in a signing Maxwell, but in a draft. I think they draft a center at this point. D-Boy, Hawks Nest, can you go over all of the Seahawks offensive moves and have them grade rate, please? Yeah, absolutely, man. Gerald Everett, I give this move an A-. It's a 1-year, $6 million deal. D-Boy, you got no multi-year commitment to the guy. It's basically a prove-it deal for a guy that's the same age as Jonnu Smith, who's costing you about 1/4 the rate Jonnu Smith's costing the New England Patriots for a very similar player. Can't block as well as Jonnu Smith, but he's probably a better yak guy than Jonnu Smith is. But again, very close in players. Ethan Posick, 1 year, $3 million. Again, I value this by the player and the value of the deal. To me, this is like it's like a B minus move. Solid move. Hard to argue with $3 million on a center on a 1-year deal. It gives you league average play. That's to me a B minus. Gabe Jackson, I give that a solid B move. I'm not over the moon as other people, because I have some reluctance with him moving back over from right guard to left guard, and if he will be able to hold up there against your Aaron Donald types at that point, as well as he could hold over at right guard. I know he didn't give up a sack last year, but he did give up 29 pressures last season, operating from the right guard role, which is usually only taking on the one-tech defensive tackles, those non-rushing, pass-rushing defensive tackles. So if he's giving up the 29 pressures against those guys that are going to be lessened than what he deals with other the 3-tech, where's that going to leave us? Keelio Witherspoon, I give this move a B. This is one of those smart team-building roster moves that you love. $4.5 million is not a big commitment. Again, it's a lot like the Gerald Everett to Jonnu Smith. As Gerald Everett is to Jonnu Smith, Keelio Witherspoon is to Shaquille Griffin, because he's basically making about 1/4 of what Shaquille Griffin's going to be able to make, whereas he was rated better by Pro Football Focus by 15 points, which was pretty significant last season, played some of his best football last season. He's only 25 years old, just getting into his prime. And he's not a perfect player. He's had some ups and downs. He only played 11 games last year, and he played his best ball at the end of the year when he was really starting to be injected as a starter. But it's an all-upside move, and it's on a proven deal, and he's a scheme familiarity. To me, that's a good solid B. Nick Bellore, you need, that's okay. That's fine. He's the best you're basically paying for special teams performance there. One of the best special teams players in the league. He's always getting the tackles. And then the Puna 4 deal, same thing. Hard not to be mad. I call them the 2 meat and potatoes deals. I'd give both of those deals they're again B. Good solid B. Chris Carson, I would give as an A- on that deal, because I think that's one where the value is incredible there. The short-term commitment for a guy is going to be 26 and 27 years old in the 2 years of the deal you have him on the hook for, 25, 26 years old in the deal you have him on the hook for. That's phenomenal value for the production you get from it. So overall, I put him somewhere probably right on the line between B+ and A- overall. Probably B+ as we stand right now, but with a few more extra moves, round out some more holes, D-Boy, you can push me up into the A- range of things. Deadly Content, you can't write Penny off. I mean, it's not his fault. I agree, Deadly Content. I'm glad you're with me on this one, man. I've been fighting this fight for a while. I'm not going to die in this trench. I'm not going to die in the Penny trench by any means. But it's where I land on him, where I feel like just give him the opportunities. I think I posted a stat a few weeks ago of there being 6 games where he was given 10 carries or more in the game, where he was truly given a chance to get in there, get in the course of the game, get a sweat up, figure out the holes, figure out how the teams are playing him. Averaged over 5 yards a carry in those games. On outside runs in 2019 before his ACL, he was averaging 8 yards a carry on outside runs. The team just hasn't been willing to utilize him right on those outside runs. They want to smash him inside when Russ is under center on inside zone, or they do the read option look again into inside zone. Off the read option look out a shotgun. Both of these things end up leading Penny to having to play outside of what his strength is, which is operating on the outside, operating in space, and letting him utilize his upper level speed. He's got elite speed in this league for a running back. Washington Fist Quest says, in for a penny, in for a pound. That's right, buddy. That's right. Jeff Evans, Shane Waldron might be the best move so far? Question mark. It might very well be, Jeff. I mean, you take your offense from 1987 to 2021. Yeah, that's, we just jumped forward 3 decades in the time machine, baby. I would expect that's going to have a great effect. This is a modern offense. And what I mean by that is you take away the things that were the big major issues within the offense. Schottenheimer, very boring as a play caller, very easy to scheme for, not varied as far as what he does from his personnel groupings, very easy pre-snap to diagnose where the play is going to go, doesn't disguise a lot pre-snap. That on itself is going to turn 180 degrees with this new scheme. And then you add in the potential of things that were complete Achilles heels for Schottenheimer being like mid-game adjustments. We don't know that Waldron's going to be good in mid-game adjustments, but it's going to be pretty hard for him to be as bad as Schottenheimer was in that respect. He was just not good. And he was good with plan A. When he had plan A, Schottenheimer, when his plan A worked, it was cooking. It was moving. But when plan A got figured out by the opposition, he had no backup plan B to go to. I have to feel like Waldron's got to be a little bit better in that respect as well. Randall McDaniel says, I never liked Hollister. I didn't either. And it sure hurts to have paid him $3.2 million last year, and then you go watch him make $1.8 million in free agency this year. Seems like maybe we're overpaying last year a little bit for him on that one, huh? Seahawks, what do you think about the rumors of Russ wanting AB again? Not sure how true it is, just a rumor. I don't think it's probably a rumor, Seahawks. He's been pretty clear about his love for AB, and this would now be the 3rd time he's trying to bring him into the fold. 3rd time. So, again, it speaks to a lot about how much can we read into where the front office is with Russell, how much can we read in about where the front office is with Russell Wilson in the long term. This kind of move, this kind of deal could give them great insight into it because you got a player that he wants. You've got a need on the team for another wide receiver. If you're looking to make Russ happy, looking to fill out the need, there is a little bit of risk, I get that, but this would show us in that, they're looking to continue to mend these fences as opposed to let's placate him for a year and then we'll ship him out next year. That's what I'm saying it in kind of deference to. B-Russ says trade Lockett for a 2nd or 3rd, bring in AB to be the number 2, and then draft a slot receiver, center, and cornerback. Finish the offseason by bringing in Clowney and Dunlap. That would be a Super Bowl team. Yeah, I could see that being definitely a Super Bowl team. That's a Super Bowl caliber team to me, B-Russ. That absolutely is. I love it. Because AB ain't costing the $11 million this year that Lockett's going to cost. He ain't going to be anywhere near that cost this year. TJ says, do we only have 3 picks now? Yep. What we got? We got number 2, number 4, and a 7th round pick. Randall says, it's our better offseason in a long time. At least it appears as such. No head scratchers yet. Good value. Great point, Randall, and that's absolutely on point. Last year, right out the gate in the first day of free agency, BJ Finney, huh? A pass blocking center? What? All of us were like, why? Benson Mayowa? Okay. Even the Bruce Irvin one, which you felt good about the Sam, you understood at that point, I see what they're doing. They're going to try to tell us Mayowa and Irvin are equivalent to Jadeveon Clowney. Last year there was a lot of head scratchers that you didn't feel good about. And none of these are head scratchers. None of these are, I have to sort of talk myself into liking them as moves. No, they're solid moves. They're good stuff. These are all above board. So you're right. One of the better off-season starts we've seen recently where they're at least pushing something forward. You go back even the year before and you had the no cap space and you're going to have to trade 1 of 4 of Russell Wilson, Bobby Wagner, Jaron Reed, and Frank Clark. They moved on Frank Clark, of course, but they had no room that offseason. They had to do a lot of acrobatics. This offseason has not been that way necessarily. It's been very good. Very good. Randall, they've taken out the 3-wood and they've driven it right down this end of the fairway. They didn't go for length. They're just like, let's get it down the fairway, 260 yards, and then we'll figure out what we need to do with the irons. Keisler, Cooter, Carson's back, baby. Yeah, he is. The bowl in the China shop has returned. D-Boy, did the Jags really pay Griffin $44.6 million? They did, D-Boy. I told you he was going to get paid. I said some team's going to talk themselves into it. Some team's going to say, he's just coming into his own. He had that Pro Bowl year. And he actually jumped like 2 routes last year, which is enough for him to put on film of them to be, he can do that. He can put that into, he can do that all the time. No. You get that once every 7 or 8 games. You get a play every game that he makes a play on the ball, and then he gives up a lot of catches in between that. A gross overpay, D-Boy, but then again, they were in the same boat that the New England Patriots were in. Those were two teams that had rolled over a lot of cap space from the prior year. They had a lot of money to spend. It had to go somewhere. They had positions of need. I will say this, Shaquille makes a nice pairing there with Henderson. He doesn't have to be the number one guy there. C.J. Henderson, the guy they drafted the first round last year, gets to be the number one guy. He'll slide into the number two. He'll be covering number 2 receivers. That's not bad for him. But he made way more than I ever would have come. I wouldn't have paid him half per season of what he got paid by the Jaguars. Why Dude Wise says 100% agree. The move Seattle is making now, let's let them draft the best player available every pick. Boy, that would be nice, wouldn't it? Why Dude Why? Over recent years, Seattle's drafted to need. And that's a horrible place to be at when you go into the draft. You want to go to free agency and sign for need in free agency. You want to draft for the best player available. That's how you smartly build rosters and construct rosters. And, even if when you look to last year, the Darrell Taylor pick and giving up a 3rd round pick to move up in the 2nd round to get him, you were hoping for that production out the gate. You were needing him to be your starting Leo out the gate. And the prior year with L.J. Collier, the reason you had to make the Jadeveon Clowney trade because you were hoping and you had reached for L.J. Collier in the 1st round. It doesn't tend to work out when you got to reach for need. You want to just pick the best guy that's available in your spot. Who's the highest guy we got on our board right now? That's the way you want to operate. And I hope they are able to operate that way, Dude. Why? We're in position to do so. Because you've taken care of basically, with the exception of at this point, and really, we're talking about specialized spots because you've got an early down will linebacker. You go sign probably a cheap Sam like Bruce Irvins from somewhere else. So those aren't going to be as needing. You have young pass rushers who can go. You're looking at needing rotational pass rushers. But you should be in a position with the way you've set this up to be able to pick for best player available. They haven't necessarily recently as much. Because you followed Darrell Taylor up with Damian Lewis, which worked out well, but you had, kind of a need at right guard because they were planning on moving on from DJ Fluker. That's actually a little different. They had DJ Fluker already, and then they drafted the best player available, They did with that pick what I'm talking about, essentially. AI, nice globe. Are you traveling? You a traveling man? I am a traveling man. I'm always on the move, AI. In fact, I'm just about to be on the move again here soon. Randall says it's good for the locker room for Hawks to sign Carson. Drafted guys getting 2nd contracts when they perform is great for morale. All things equal, sign our guys first when they perform. Agreed, Randall. It's a good thing, and especially when you get them on a discount. James Tomlinson, is there anyone we can pay center at this point? I don't see anyone who's available for center. ? Not really, James. The guys kind of got taken off the board out there that were available, so you kind of are where you are. There are good centers in the draft right around the 2nd round. Right around the 2nd round, there's 3 particular guys that Seattle could take a look at. Landon Dickerson being the guy that would be the 1st round pick if he didn't have his injury problems with his lower legs, specifically his ACL tear from last year. He's a guy with a lot of the upside necessarily. You got Creed Humphrey, who's probably a little bit more of your safer center with not as much upside necessarily. And then you have Myers out of Ohio State, who probably sits somewhere between those 2 guys as a prospect. So any of those 3 guys would be who they might take a real keen look at. But you're right. There's not a lot left out there on the market at this point. They're definitely going to be riding a little bit with they're going to ride a little bit here with Posick at this point. And they do have the Fuller guy that they signed as well. Let's not forget that if they're looking at maybe him as a feasible backup. I don't know if he's good enough. Haven't seen enough of his tape. But they do have Fuller as well. Randall says, I always thought Posick has the look of a right tackle. Tall, slenderish, not overly strong. Usually you want the right tackle strong, though, Randall. That's the thing you want them as first and foremost. You want them to be a bull because you need them strong side to be able to push the point of attack. And if they're blasted back at the point of attack, that's going to destroy a lot of your strong side runs, which is where you're going to run predominantly. So I would probably say he does from a body standpoint, but just not from a strength standpoint, as you point to. Don't at me. Your thoughts on maybe pursuing F. Chiefs right tackle to upgrade? I know he had an injured season. Jeff Schwartz is who I believe you're talking about. Look, he was magnificent over a couple of years ago, had a great playoff run. What I understand about with this injury, though, is that it's a very serious, career-threatening type injury. If he is healthy enough to play, don't at me. If he's healthy enough to come back, if he's got that in him and it's not as bad as has been reported, I'm on board with it. He certainly would be an upgrade over what you have at Brandon Shell there. But that's the key on that one, is I don't know where his health is. And those reports that we've heard, I think, are fairly accurate with this. This is probably indicative of why the Chiefs released him. Both him and Fisher were released, I think, because they had the knowledge that neither of these guys are going to play at least for the majority of next year. We clear the cap space out and try to reload in other places. Washi says we restructured a lot of players because if you look at the cap hits on paper, we are over the cap and we can't be over the cap, so it only makes sense. Watch Seahawks Brendan Nelson explain why. Makes sense, Washi, and they could be just they haven't announced it publicly as of yet, these restructurings. The quickest place that they could have done it, they wouldn't need to restructure anything, was just you take Russ's base money and convert it to bonus. I would expect that they have probably at the very least done that already. D-Boy says, how do you feel about us going after T.Y. Hilton? T.Y. Hilton's a guy who I'm still very much high on, D-Boy. He's a little older, 30 years plus old. So obviously he's not necessarily as fast as he used to once be. But with that said, he's a very, very good receiver, understands how to run routes, can do the secondary route running that we sometimes need with Russell on the broken plays. I think he'd fit really well with that. The thing factor that I like with T.Y. too is when you look at his recent history, when he had Andrew Luck there, he's one of the best receivers in the league. Andrew Luck leaves, and then he gets Jacoby Brissett throwing him the ball for a season or two. And then he gets Phillip Rivers throwing him the ball for last year. Two guys who really aren't going to get the most out of his skill set, especially deep down the field, attacking deep down the field. Going near to Russ, he would be a really good fit with Russ in that skill set, I would feel like. It would be a good match, I think, between those two guys. Sean Wright says, I wish we would re-sign Jamal already. Every day we wait, he's getting more expensive. Not a lot's been heard on that, Sean, and that it is a bit of an odd factor. This has not been done yet. There is a bit of part of me that wonders with there not being a deal done yet with Jamal Adams, if this does not start to open up a door of maybe Seattle looks at it at this what they call the sunk cost fallacy with Jamal Adams, being that though he had a fairly okay year for us last year, struggled in coverage, great in pass rush, that maybe Seattle looks at it and says, it's not really good for us to be a blitz-heavy scheme. He's more of a 3-4 attacking strong safety than he's a 4-3 under strong safety. I hope they don't go that route. I don't want them to move him for a first-round pick and then be out. Essentially say, well, he just didn't fit. We were trying for it. We lose a first and a third and call it a day. That would be disappointing if they do go that direction. But if they're not going to sign him to an extension, I mean, I can't think that he's going to want to play out the last year of his deal. Part of the reason he wanted to be moved on by the Jets was they weren't paying him yet. He wanted to get paid. So he played out it on a cheap deal last year at something like $2.5 million. I have to feel like somehow or another he's going to want that new contract. Jay says, all we need to do is restructure a contract, trade Lockett down with the second rounder, then draft 2 wide receivers for number 2 and 3 wide receiver, then get veteran pass rush, and we're good. Sounds like a plan to me, man. Sounds like a plan, Jace. Paul Third, Carson's very underrated. Maybe it was Carroll's plan to limit his carries and lower his stats because he wasn't getting any interest. Per carry, he is one of the best. Certainly has averaged over 4 yards a carry throughout his career, which is one of the great metrics for a running back. Forces one of the leaders in forced missed tackles in the NFL. Another metric you'd like to use with running backs: how much are they able to get done on their own, or how much are they reliant on an offensive line to do for them? They've been very solid in a lot of different respects. So I feel like it's a good deal. It's a good deal here. Hard to look down on it, Paul. Hard to pick this one apart, especially $2.5 million. Tommy Eden, how does JS get back into the draft? No way he goes into this thing with so few picks. That means we have to trade somebody off. Or do you think we just skip the draft, as crazy as it sounds? I think you're onto something, Tommy. I don't think that John Schneider's it's like against his religion to go into the draft with only 3 picks. You know, he's creating a prophecy by only having 3 picks going into this draft. So I would expect him to find a way to generate some draft choices. From my standpoint, the top 2 guys on that list that you would take a look at here would be Tyler Lockett and Jaron Reed. Not because Lockett isn't still good. Not because Lockett isn't still one of the, a perfect fit for Russell Wilson and they've got that great wavelength going and all that, but because he's due to be paid again. I don't want to pay him. I can't pay him a new contract and then pay DK $23 million a year next year. I don't feel like I can fit that along with paying my quarterback nearly $40 million a year at that point. So I move on from Tyler. I get draft capital back. I get the highest draft capital back in return of any player that I could trade for on this roster, really, outside of Russ. And then I can move back with that second rounder, still have my other second rounder. I can create more draft capital off that second rounder. That one makes the most sense to me, whereas I think Reed really probably gets you like a 4th round return. That's his highest probably return value, and I don't know that really is going to move the needle that much at that point. Irina, I really want us to re-sign KJ and Dunlap. Dunlap was the main reason our defense improved the way it did. He was essential. Irina, I agree. I agree. This part of the disappointment when he was released for me out the gate was like, why are you going to release the guy who changed the defense the second he arrived? And it's who mans a position that's been an absolute black hole for you over the last couple of years in getting any kind of pass rush. It was a head scratcher. Hopefully he does return to us. I know that Seattle's in on it. They are in on it. Cage is going to be a little harder because we are running out of cap space, but I'm sure he's gone out on the market and come to find it's pretty cool out there for will linebackers in the 4-3 under scheme. You know, it's a pretty cool market for him. Guys don't rush the pass rusher. You're not getting paid that much at that position. That wide receiver 3-4 from the Los Angeles Rams, Josh Reynolds, would be a nice fit for cheap. He would, if he does come cheap, hopefully. And it does look like the wide receiver market has gotten a little bit depressed in that respect. Mark Capricorn, do you think Gabe would have lasted long enough for Raiders to cut him so we didn't lose that draft pick? I hope they find a way to get Dunlap back. I don't know that he would have necessarily lasted Mark a long period of time because you saw with Zeitler off the market, Brandon Scherf was off the market, Joe Thuney was off the market. Most of the guards that were at his level or near his level were gone. He would have been sort of the top guy on the board. And when you look at the draft, it's not deep for guards past that second round period. So it's a little bit of a scarcity at the position right now. And Jackson probably would have benefited from that on the open market. So you probably at the end of the day had to make the trade in order to facilitate it because some other team probably would have given a little bit more or maybe been where he wanted to play closer to home, that kind of thing. Randall says, if we plan to keep Russell Wilson past next year, we already would have restructured. Well, at least convert that base money to bonus, right, Randall? I mean, at the very least, they would have done that already if that's what they're intending to do. James Tomlinson, it's the key for the base 4-3 defense to have pressure. Agreed. Yeah, James, it's the part that this front office is frankly at times forgotten about. And it's the part that I don't really get with them why they do. Because they're in the designs of the base of the scheme are not to blitz heavy. You know, you don't want to do that. You want to drop as many guys as you can into coverage and then let your front four guys generate the pressure, let them win. But you've got to do that by stacking up the talent that was there. And when you look at when we had our NASCAR package specifically running at its hottest, that engine was revving. You had multiple guys you could rotate in. You were keeping guys fresh and you had upper level talent and you had guys that could challenge all along that defensive line. It would be nice to try to angle back into that direction of things. Jay Hornsby says, who's the starter, Penny or Carson? Carson would be your starter right now, though I would expect Penny to be utilized more than in recent history because within the Rams offense, they utilize outside zones so often. And that's what they were doing with Todd Gurley for years there, right? Is they'd get extra blockers to one side of the football field, create that lane, and let Gurley run right down that lane on the edges. Utilizes speed and quickness to get down there. So I'd expect them to do something similar with Penny, though Carson will get his share of touches too. Randall McDaniel says Marvin Jones would be a dynamite number 3. He would. Jones would fit well with Russell's skill set too, especially with his contested catch ability. I mean, Russell's ability to throw it up there deep and give his guys a chance. And Marvin would love that. Randall says, I bet we hear best shape of his career about Penny this offseason. Does the scheme fit Penny better than Carson? Yeah, it does. Carson's not going to be as good an outside rusher in this scheme. You ask Carson to get to the edges. You saw it a couple times last year. It's to mixed results. If the defense is completely unaware, you're going to attack to the outside because they're going all in on stopping Carson on the inside zone, then it will open up for him. But if they're playing it balanced, he doesn't have that speed to get out to that edge to really challenge out there like that. So it doesn't make him as good a fit as Carson. But with that said, Randall, you need both running backs. You need the thunder and lightning in this scheme for it to work. You need to be able to have the guy that can challenge the edges and the guy that can hammer it up the middle. Because even Rams throughout these last couple of years, they've always had the Malcolm Brown with the Cam Akers, you know, the 1-2 punch, because they will still attack up the middle as well. Akers did a lot of his best work up the middle last year. So the running scheme tries to attack all the way around. It doesn't try to hone in like the last scheme did, our last zone scheme, just to the inside zone. We're going to run everything between the A gaps. All of our rushes are coming between the A gaps. We're going to widen it out all the way now. Everything's opened up now. James says, so offense stay. We need Dunlap and more. I'm just saying I'm tired of the Homer stuff. Yeah, Travis Homer is not an answer. Neither is DJ Dallas, James. Neither of those two guys have shown me anything that shows me that there's something there that I should get excited about. You can upgrade over both of those two guys, and I would be perfectly happy by doing so. James says, I want to see Brooks at middle linebacker. I'm tired of the 7:10 a.m. Homer crap. Oh, Homer stuff. Okay, yeah. I'm with you, James. I look, you draft a guy that's best positions middle linebacker, and if he plays this year, James, even if Jordan Brooks plays, he's going to be your early down will linebacker who probably comes off the field on passing downs. Unless he gets remarkably better off of what I've seen on his college tape, of what we saw last year in his coverage, where Pro Football Focus rated him 93 out of 100 outside linebackers in coverage last year, you're going to see him get picked on in that respect. So until you move him to his natural position, which is middle linebacker, you're not utilizing that first-round pick right. And it echoes to what with Marquise Blair, where right now Marquise Blair doesn't have a position on this team. He has no pathway to a starting position on this team. He's going to have to ball out so hard to get over the top of the next guy there. It's not a good methodology towards drafting to pick guys high, pick first-rounders high who should be starters and then be sitting them a year or two before you get any kind of real quality development from them. Right about the same point in time at that point, by the way, when you'll have to then pay them. So, I wouldn't be adverse, James, to them moving on from Wagner at this point, because I've maintained Wagner right now saves you a lot of money. And I go back to this again and again. If Brooks gives you basically 95% of what Bobby Wagner gives you right now, which I think he probably does, or 90% of what Bobby would get at 1/10 the cost, maybe you use those assets into other places, like, for instance, the pass rush. Washington Fish Quest. I'm of the mind, get an edge, then take care of everything else in the draft, even with a few picks. Wide receiver 3 could be a rookie, Swain, or use your tight end much more. They could, and then certainly the Rams the last couple of years have used 2 tight end sets on the regular. That's been the big transition change. They went from their Super Bowl seasons where it was more of the 3 wide receiver looks that they would go for. I just want the edge to be a veteran guy because to me, edge and tight end are 2 positions that seem to take a little bit of time for most guys to develop coming into the league. They don't just come out and start with a splash. It gives them a year or 2 to kind of come along a bit. So go out and get those more certainties out there, those guys that are more ready to roll in that respect. Wide receivers can hit the ground running, so I'm okay with that. I feel like you get Washington Fish Quest a cheap, good, solid wide receiver out there. Their market's been more depressed than I think people thought this offseason overall. Randall McDaniel, Dunlap in Houston, Kerrigan, Alden. To me, Clowney would be a luxury addition right before the season. I don't think he's coming to camp. He might not be. He would be smart to, though, because I think a lot of the reasons he's had the injury things that he's had is because he hasn't had a full training camp of preparing his body in the right way to get it to go. But with that said, those other guys you mentioned, Randall, for me, it all are in a very similar little box there. So just get me 2 of those guys. I feel good about the production I'm going to get from my edges. Why, dude, why? If Seattle could get 1,000 year out of the tight end core, 1,000 yards out of the tight end core, it would be a game changer of how well Seattle moves the ball. Would help every other aspect of the run, deep pass, etc. Yeah, it would be extremely beneficial for them to be able to utilize the inside of the football field a little bit more. And specifically, the tight ends will do that because teams last year, part of the reason why the deep shots got taken away you get 3 safety deep looks, and you'd see these shell coverages just going 30, 40, 50 yards down the field, and then all of this space opened up in front. That should be where a tight end is allowed to flourish, able to flourish. And if Seattle can just utilize it, which this new offensive coordinator's, that's the MO of him, that's what he's supposed to be able to do. If they can accomplish that, then you can get up in there. I think it's 1,000 yards cumulatively, wide. I think they could even get a little bit over the top of that if you factor in the Disley, Parkinson, Everett. But good point, man. It is a key. It's a key. You need to get more production out of that position. Tommy Eden, another year for Posick under center. Maybe if he hits the weight room hard this year, he could turn into an above-average center on a great deal at that point. Trying to be optimistic. Hey, he's got some upside here, Tommy. You misplayed him out of position, and I've maintained for a while, especially in the offensive line. You move an offensive lineman off of one position, which is his natural position, and you are sort of depressing his level of development, in my opinion. Because now he's trying to work on being a good left guard. And okay, now I'm trying to work on being a right guard. And okay, now you're going to put me back at center. So he finally last year got locked in at center. Started out really good. I think he had a couple of things that nagging injury-wise kind of lowered down his performance as the year went along. But there's room there. Continuity, learning the position, understanding what it takes to play the position in the NFL. He's getting there. And I think you got room to be optimistic there. I think there's reason to be optimistic there. Randall McDaniel, I'd love seeing us taking a run at Everson Griffin. He's got to be the cheapest of the lot. I don't put him in that same pile as the other guys you mentioned there, Randall. He'd be a veteran on a 1 year, $1 million deal type guy from my standpoint of things. Paul Third, Clowney isn't an every play guy. Ingram is the best edge still available. Hilton is the smartest wide receiver pickup with DK's deal coming up, and Aldon Smith would be a good pickup for a 1 year. He hates the 49ers. I'd love Aldon Smith. I think, Paul, you're correct. Aldon would be probably the most valued for me out of that list of guys. The thing with Clowney, or the thing with any veteran pass rusher we bring in here, Paul, is I don't believe that any of them have got to be an every down guy. What you've got with the 4 young cats behind these guys, when you got L.J. Collier, Rasheem Green, Darrell Taylor, and L.J. Collier, you've got 4 young defensive ends who can eat up some snaps and who can give you some productivity. What you need is some certain productivity. Guys that when you need a sack, when you need a pressure at just the right time of game, I need to bring this guy in and let him go do it. That's what we saw with Dunlap last year. You had the Cardinal game, when you needed a sack. Cardinals are driving down at the end. Oh my God, they're going to beat us. We're going to beat us. No, he comes in and he gets the sack, closes the game up on a 4th down. Washington football team driving down. Boop. Here comes Carlos Dunlap with just the right kind of pass rush, just the right kind of time, gets the sack, closes the game out. That's what those veteran pass rushers give you. I would maintain Clowney's like that, who historically has gotten, when he's been healthy, has historically gotten better over the course of the years as a pass rushers, as the year wears on. And a guy who's tended to be good in sort of the crunch time when you need him. So I'm on board with that respect. These guys don't have to be every down guys because of your depth there. We just need certainty, guys that we know can generate that pass rush. And I'm all on board with Hilton. I like Ty Ty. So D-Nugget, thank you for the $3 donation, sir. I do salute you and appreciate it, my guy. Do appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. You are awesome. Where are we at here? The Seahawks Network. Yo, what's up? Not going to chat. Just going to listen to the stream, watch March Madness, and work on some YouTube videos. Sounds good, man. I appreciate you. Appreciate you for listening in, Seahawks Network. We got some good stuff. I got a video idea, I think, for you, Seahawks Network. I was going to maybe do on my channel, but I got one for you that I think you might like. Hit me up on if you get a chance. I'm going to hit you up. Azoz, do you think Snyder can turn 3 picks into 5 or more picks? Yeah, he can. I think he could. Certainly, he's a guy that if anybody can turn more picks out of any picks, he's the kind of guy who can do it. I think he wants to probably just add more picks versus having to trade back and make those picks go like that. Because if you trade back from the second round at 3-ish, 24-ish, and you move back into the 3rd round around the midpoint of the 3rd round, you're really only going to pick up about like a 5th or 6th round choice in addition to that. There's not a lot that you get for dropping back like that there. So it's more, we need to add more picks, I think, as those than anything else. Randall says Everett was a 2nd round pick from a smaller school, drafted on projection, physical, freaky athlete, lots of upside to your point. Absolutely. And still some upside left to him, only turning 26 years old. You know, a guy that hasn't been featured a ton with the Rams. They won, like I said, they like to work that ball around. So maybe there is some upside to him too. Glory says, Gino, it's on a website called Fan. Just search up Fanside. Russell Wilson, Antonio Brown, you should read it. M-Web, I feel like this offseason might have provided the fire motivation this team has been missing, says M-Web. I hope so. You know, you can make the argument, M-Web, you know, there was always a little bit of contention, even back in the Legion of Boom era days, you know, are we getting enough credit? Russell Wilson, you know, there was a little bit of that healthy tension, let's call it that, healthy tension, where they, you know, it isn't all just, you know, happiness and we're all holding hands. There's a little bit of that, just like kind of people are on edge. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that's where you need to be a little bit. Edub says, how many draft picks do we have? We have 3 draft picks, Edub. We have a 2nd rounder, a 4th rounder, and a 7th rounder. Jace, Brandon is literally the Friends meme when Joey's learning French. Everyone muka mua. Brandon muka mua. I told you I can't. There's some names I can't pronounce, and I'm trying with him, but it's too much. Too many syllables, man. He's the Moo for me. I call him the Moo from now on. Isaac Fisher, what is the realistic trade value of Lockett if we did trade him? I would say your high top end on it, Isaac, is if you get a mid-2nd round pick. I think your low end on it is that you'd be a low 3rd round pick. I think you could get somewhere in that. Now it is a deep draft for slot wide receivers. Maybe that depresses his value a little bit. Certainly the receiver market's been depressed as far as the contracts they're receiving out there. So there may be an argument made that maybe it's more likely you could only get a 3 for him. But I feel like you could get a 3rd-round pick for a guy that had a 100-catch season last year and is known as one of the best slot receivers right now. Not a guy you got to draft and develop and wait for his top end. You get his top end right now. So I would think that there would be a trade you can move with that. Why? If we do sign 2 vet defensive ends, then that would put all the competition pressure on a player like Green to step up or get cut. Put someone's career on the line and see how they perform. Yeah, I think it would provide a healthy level of competition to those 4 guys I mentioned, and that one of those 4 guys ain't probably making the roster at that point. Maybe you have the room to do it, but you put them in that pressure cooker of going, okay, Rasheem, what is he in year 4 now? Like, what do you got, dude? What do you got? We've given you 3 years to get going here, 3 years to be in an NFL weight room and to be around, have the best stuff at your hands. What do you got as far as development? Same thing down the line to LJ Collier and all the rest. So this is the time. They got to show out. And I think that's what that does is it pushes them. They don't just get a spot given to them and feel comfortable. They got to go earn anything they go out there and get at that point. I'm calling him the Moo, Seahawks Network. I'm not pronouncing Israel's name anymore. It's now the Moo from here on out. Why? Forget Atkins. Sue is the best free agent inside defensive lineman that would make an impact. I would be way more on board with Ndamukong Suh than I would be with Atkins. Way more on board with that. Why? Great point. He is a better player. He is a better player at this point in what you got in Sue, even with his age. Still a very good player. Tommy Eden says, I don't like trading Reed. He has the most experience on the line right now. Sad. True. It's more of it. I don't like the thought of necessarily trading him either, Eden. It's just that you just don't have a lot of other options out there as far as to create cap space and or to get more draft picks. Josiah McNeil. How you doing, Josiah? He love you. I'm glad to hear you love me. We should get back Dunlap. I expect him to still be a target for us, Josiah, and the word is that we're talking to his people. We're in on the mix on it, which is all you can ask at this point, be in on the mix. So hopefully they do bring him back. Randall says, I bet we don't sign Wayne Gallman at this point. Yeah, your Wayne Gallman dream is going to have to die, Randall, unfortunately, on that one. I'm sorry, buddy. I'm so sorry. Why? Penny's career yard per carry, 5.1 yards per carry. 5.1. I've seen stats that he gets more than 6 carries in a game. It's more like 6. That's correct. Why? It's why I come back to it, Penny. There's people that I get smacked around for this all over the place as far as people just hating my take on this. But I'm going to stay strong on it until I see a guy given an opportunity, a true opportunity, when in the opportunity he's provided, he's shown out. I'm not going to be down on the guy. Injuries are going to happen. He had the cleanest medical history, one of the cleanest medical histories for any prospect that the Seahawks have ever scouted, according to them. I'm going to lean back on the nature of saying these 2 different injuries he's essentially had, being the broken hand and the ACL, are 2 freakish injuries that are able to be overcomable. And I truly believe that. So if that being the case, let's get him some chances to shine this season. Let's utilize him right on the edges. But they're pretty stark stats, aren't they? Why? I mean, it's like it's staring you right in the face. His production there. Jay Davis, should I be worried we got Hollister? Jay, he's not bad. So here's this thing with him, okay? He's a willing blocker, but he's going to get blown back off the ball, by anybody that's even halfway strong. Everybody's going to be stronger than him because his size-wise just ain't there. He's a move tight end for you guys. You're going to use him like your H-back tight end, so you often don't have to have him right on the line of scrimmage necessarily. He'll be next to the inline guys. He's a sure-handed catcher when he gets open, and he's open and he's there. He's going to make the catch. If he's got a guy anywhere near him, if it's going to result in a kind of contested catch, if he's got to do a lot of catching out away from his body, not great at that. But because he's got a little bit of speed, got a little bit of juice in his legs, he can sometimes create that separation to get the defender away from him to make that catch. And he can be solid in that respect. Just don't expect a guy to be any kind of star potential, Pro Bowl potential, or on the line of, he's not in the same realm of Jonnu Smith, Gerald Everett. He is a very large step down, but it's still an okay player. And you didn't pay him a lot, Jay. So you're only giving him he's only on the hook for $1.8 million. That's not a bad deal, especially when you consider we paid him $3.2 million last year. Shane, Brandon, you and Norbcab should do a collab this season. Both y'all have great takes. It would be rad to see your powers combined. I would definitely be, I'd definitely be available to doing that, Shane. I'd love to do a little bit more collab. I always feel a little bit weird reaching out to the other YouTube guys that are out there because they all got their own. Most of them are all a lot more bigger than where I'm at, and so it's like, I think Norb's up at like something like 40,000 plus subs or something like that. So I'm kind of a small potatoes probably for him on that, but I'd be open. I'd love to jump on the show, jump on his horn. Hollister and Allen were teammates in college. That's interesting. Yeah, Hollister went to Wyoming, huh? Randall says, I bet Everett won't get stood up like a bowling pin at the 1 yard line on the last play of the game versus our bitter rival to win the division. I would guess he's got a little bit more sand in the pants than Hollister, Randall. I think he'd be able to edge that ball over the line. Israel Galarza, how you doing, Israel? Will Russell Wilson win one more ring in Seattle? I'm going to say yes, Israel, but that's me being a complete homer. I don't have anything to go off with that, but yeah, I'm going to say he's going to win 3 more rings in the Seattle over the next 10 years. Just because I'm an optimist at heart. But Soy Reality says no. Shane, I would be effing stoked to see Russell restructure. I would too. Lance Johnson, Schneider will trade down into the 3rd to pick up a 5th or 6th. Draft Lockett's replacement at wide receiver. Use Lockett's money on a tackle or center. That means another middle linebacker. I would be shocked to see them take a middle linebacker at this point, Lance, being that you've got Bobby Wagner, you've got Jordan Brooks, and then you have Ben Burkervin, who also basically is a middle linebacker. And I think even Cody Barton probably could place a middle linebacker in a pinch. So you're one of your more deeper positions on the roster. I wouldn't expect them to go that direction. I'm in favor of Lance. I think there'll be a cornerback there available in the later rounds who's really a guy who probably, if he had been a guy, for instance, in Paulson Acebo's the Stanford quarterback's case, if he had played the prior year, might be a 2nd, 3rd round pick, but instead falls to the 5th, 6th, 7th round range of things. I think there's going to be a couple of those guys there, Lance, and you want to try to get as many of those guys as you can. These are pure Seahawk cornerback fits, 6+ foot in height, 33-inch long arms, ball skills, zone background in what they played, some of them in the cover 3 type zone. Perfect, absolute phenomenal fits. I would look for that to be more of the direction. But I could see them doing what you said there with him trading back in that 3rd. It's, as you said, you only do get that 5th or 6th rounder for doing that, just not a lot of return for that trade back at that point. Why Dude Why says Seattle's front office seems to keep miscalculating how much other teams value defensive end and miss out on good ones in the draft and free agency trying to get more value. I hope they've learned. I do too. Why Dude Why? It's elemental to this defense that you get pass rush. You don't get pass rush, the defense is going to fall off. I don't care how good the secondary or linebackers looks. So it is paramount to this offseason that we add pass rushing talent, legitimate pass rushing talent. Stelio, we need to trade DK Metcalf for a real quarterback. That'd be a pretty crazy trade. I don't know if I'd ever seen that, a franchise level, generational level wide receiver potentially for a real quarterback. It's a possibility they go in that direction. If they don't want to pay DK $23 million next year, they may think, let's move him and then get something in return for him because we don't want to pay him that amount of money. But I think we probably keep him, Stel. And I think he's probably going to be paid a pretty good contract next year. Shane says, I have no clue we lost rookie tight end Sullivan and he went to Carolina. Yep. Scott Fritterer, our former front office guy that went to Carolina there, got the new job there with him as their general manager, brought him aboard. So he plucked him as he's plucked a couple of our players this offseason. Seahawks Network, I'm doing a unique series of videos on my channel for the month of March. I'm doing a bracket-style video, and the topic is the greatest moments in Seahawks history. Nice, dude. Nice. I have 64 moments unseated at the moment. So any suggestions? I have moments from all eras of football, not just the 2010s. Well, that's good. Make sure you mix in the good stuff. You got to get the Dolphins. Obviously, Dolphins playoff win. The first win against the Broncos probably got to be on there in the 83 season. I don't know. We'd have to go through a bunch of them, man, to pick them out. But I'd grab at least those ones of the 80s. I don't know. I'd have to think about it. It's a great idea, though. Jeff Evans, I'm with you on Penny. I'm hoping for a breakout season this year. Yeah, man. I'm there. I'm excited for this guy. Get another year removed from ACL injury, which we're usually told takes an extra, they'll come back a year from when the injury happens, but it takes a year to get the full bounce back in the legs with the way that injury works. Mario Yoshi says, I'm too ashamed to be a Seahawks fan. Why are you ashamed to be a Seahawks fan, Mario? You should feel proud to be a Seahawks fan. Randall, TY signing would be great if for no other reason than doing the TY in my living room. Oh, I know, right? I already do it every time I see him scoring a touchdown just for the hell of it. It's fun to do. It's fun to do. TY. Mario says their uniforms look like crap. I like our uniforms. I'm not big on the lime look. I don't like the limesicle look, but I like our uniforms overall. Seahawks, don't worry. I'd be surprised to see John go in the draft with less than 6 picks. I would be too. I think this keeps him up at night. He hates not having. This is a guy who likes to assemble like 30 picks a draft, and he's sitting on 3 right now. Why? You trade Lockett because he's still good? Yeah, you do. You trade him because he's still good. His value is at his highest as far as trade values return. He's not exactly a fit in the new offensive scheme. He's due for a new contract. You're going to have to pay DK another year from now. Do you want to have $80 million invested in just 3 players, being Russell Wilson, DK Lockett, and Tyler Lockett? Are we comfortable with a $200 million cap, having $80 million of it on 3 players? Those are the questions I think you have to factor in on why Lockett is a target to be traded. On top of that, he gets you the maximum returns in draft capital of any of the 3 guys you could potentially trade on this roster. Saves you draft capital, saves you caps 11 million, the most cap space, brings you the mold trap return. There's a lot of reasons why it makes sense. Mario, Seahawks are selfish, greedy, jealousy, all above. My goodness, Mario going hard on the Seahawks. Well, Mario, do you think we're vastly different in any of those respects than any other NFL team out there? Do you think our team's just more selfish and greedy than... I don't know, man. Randall, please don't trade Reed. Inside pass rusher is harder to find than outside. If anything, I'd restructure or extend. He can be a 5 to 8 sack a year guy, especially if he's got some outside rush help because he's such a high effort rusher. He's a good cleanup sacker in that inside, which is something you do need, Randall, to your point. I'm less in favor of moving on from him. He doesn't bring back the draft return that a guy like Lockett does, and he doesn't save you quite as much money either, as well as then he opens up a big hole that you don't have an easy replacement for, as you spoke about. Mario Lara, who's better than Lockett for? Who's better than Lockett for? I don't know. Mario, can you rephrase that? I don't know what you mean. Chase Stern, I thought re-signing Carson would be a terrible idea, but looking at his contract, I think it was actually a good idea. At $2.5 million, Chase, it brings me even in the fold. First year cap hit of $2.5 million is amazing for a running back where he's at his age, at his production level. I can't pick that apart. I'm perfectly fine with it. Mario Lara, if Russell is traded, who's following him to his new team? I don't know, Mario. There's some people that said you could package Lockett in with Russell in the deal to get more of a draft return at that point, get more back. Maybe that's a potential that they look at. But I don't know that there's certainty that somebody's following him if he does get traded. Randall says, I wonder what Carson's 40 dash was. Got to be like 4.65. Lots of times you see the hole open and Carson gets 6 to 8 yards but doesn't pop. Yeah, he's just not I think you're probably about right. He's probably about a 4.6 guy in the 40 with good quickness. But you get him past the initial 2-3 steps of really good quickness and it starts to slow down just a little bit. Just not a burner in that realm of things. But you know, for as hard as he runs, wearing defenses down, and if you have a guy that's fast, like Penny, to me that sort of increases his value if you've got some options. You haven't had the outside guy to challenge, so defenses could really just, you know, line up in tight splits with their defensive line, concentrate to the inside zone, taking that away, and it really kind of took away what they wanted to have as their number one thing. Oh, okay, Seahawks Network. So Randall wasn't off. Randall said 4.58. The thing is, Seahawks Network, I don't know, man. He seems like a 4.58 guy to me even. He seems like a guy football speed-wise at 4.6. But 4.58 ain't that far from 4.6. We're talking about 0.40 of a second or something. Yarl, I would trade Jaron Reed for a 7th and a stick of gum. Worth it just to get rid of that contract and move Collier to the 3-tech? That'd be an interesting thought to go full-time with Collier to the 3-tech. He might work with that. I get where you're coming from, Yarl. I mean, there are a lot of people doing it, and it's $8.6 million you would save. So it is a significant portion. I would say, though, Collier from Reed is a pretty far fallback, and you don't know if Collier can give you what Reed could give you. There's similar players in the way they get their sacks from the 3-tech position in that realm. I see where you're going there, but I don't know if he gets you the same kind of production you get out of Jaron. It might be a pretty good fall off at that point. Seahawks Network, I can remember every one of Chris Carson's 25-yard plus runs, but the guy's a guaranteed 3 to 4 yards every carry. And there's value in that, Seahawks Network. There's value in that. It's good to have home run guys, and it's good to have the grinders that are tough to tackle and wear defenses down. So it's all good. D-Nugget says, let's go, son. Let's go. Randall, Alton Robinson was the second amongst rookies in sacks, 4 to 5 maybe. Didn't play first few games and then limited after that. What do you think the ceiling is? Is he an 8 to 10 sack guy? Maybe time to move Green. It very well may be time to move on from Green, especially if three of these 4 guys develop and Green's the odd man out. You could move on from him this offseason and save $1 million off next year's cap. So there is a bit of a smartness to potentially doing that. And yes, I do think he probably tops out. He can even has potential to get into the 12 sack range because he is a technician with some quickness, and then he's got some size into it. So he's got a full complement of abilities at the defensive tackle position, meaning that he can be an every down guy, getting him the volume of snaps to get to an 8 to 12 sack a year type season. I don't know if he's going to get there. I don't have a certainty of getting there. Like with Frank Clark, I had a certainty that Frank Clark, after his first year, even with I think he had 3 sacks or whatever, it was about just didn't have opportunities. I felt like he was going to get there, and I knew he'd get there. With this guy, I'm not to that same certain place, Randall, as I was with him, but I'm not far off. And I think even on his low end going forward, he's an 8-sack guy on maybe just his low end. But yeah, I would expect him to double that next year. C's Velasquez says, Dunlap. There are a lot of folks in this chat right now. Sees Juan Dunlap. You're not alone, and I'm with you. I think we're all pretty unanimous. Lakia Francisco. I'm a fan. Well, thank you, Lakia. Appreciate seeing you in the chat. It's great to see you in the chat newly in here. And flash you a little bit of the Sacco as well as a fellow Islander here speaking to you. But thanks for jumping in. Seahawks Network, Chris has become my second favorite Seahawk running back. Obviously, Lynch is my favorite, but the way Chris runs along with he doesn't have a big personality, which isn't bad, just makes me love the guy. I get it. I can get why a lot of people like him as a number 2 in their all-time list on Seahawks. For me, it probably goes for me just being an old head. You know, I go Lynch with me as being my number 1. I would then probably, and Dustin, if he's in here, is going to freak out. I would go with Marshawn as my number 1. I'd probably go with Kurt Warner as my number 2. And probably Chris Warren is like my number 3. But, you know, Carson would be fighting out with Alexander and Waters then after that. Randall says, Melvin Ingram screams NFI list to start camp. Yeah, that's my worry with Melvin Ingram is he's a guy over the last few years has played less and less games while squawking more and more about how much he thinks he should get paid. As well, I believe the guy's got 30-inch arms, and the Seahawks, when it comes to their defensive ends, defensive linemen in general, are going to be very insistent that you've got 33-inch plus long arms. I think he's too short. He's got his T-Rex arms is going to knock him off Seattle's list as far as being a guy that they really look at. He's played a lot of his career in a 3-4 scheme. I mean, he's done a little 4-3 as well, so he can do a little bit of it, but I think his best days are behind him. Roxanne, how you doing, Roxanne? Says John, Pete, Russ, all in now. We won a championship now. I agree, Roxanne. Let's go. Let's go. Make it happen, John, Pete, Russ. Lakia Francisco, Gabe Jackson on the Seahawks officially today. The Jackson trade is consummated and a great move. Lakia, he's Lakia. So hope I'm pronouncing that right. He's going to be an upgrade over what Mike Iupati was. That's a pretty big upgrade, especially in pass protection. Henry Soto, can we even get Jamal back? Well, Jamal is currently on contract, Henry, for a 1-year, roughly $10 million deal this next year. So he's due to be with us back next year. I still do expect them to one of 2 things. Either he's going to get a contract extension or they trade him. I don't expect him to come back on that 1-year, $10 million deal. Seahawks Network, I'm a huge running back fan, so I've watched a ton of Seahawks running backs highlights from all eras, and Lynch, Carson, and Warner make my top 3 with Alexander just outside at 4. Yeah, I think I would still even like Carson a bit above Alexander, despite Alexander's production. He's a fun running back to watch. FBI, open up TV. Hello, how you doing, FBI? Welcome on the chat. Henry, I want Jamal to stay so bad. I do too, Henry. I'm not one that wants to move on from him or do something else. I think he will be signed to a contract extension when it's all said and done. So I expect it to get done one way or another. Sean S., do you think Seattle will restructure Wilson's or Wagner's contract to get a free agent pass rusher or another center? I do believe that they're going to at one point or another here. They're built within Russell Wilson's contract is that his base salary this year can be converted to bonus money without Russell Wilson signing off on it. They can just do it. I would expect them to do that to create that $10 million, not $10 million of bonus, but they convert the base to bonus and you create $10 million of cap space. So if they haven't done that already, Sean, I'd expect they have done that at some point or another. Now, have they restructured him and given him a new contract and a contract that then would re-solidify him for the foreseeable future here? Lock him back in? I don't think that they're necessarily at the point of doing that. I think that there's going to be a let's see if we can make this work over the course of the next year. But I would expect them to move that base to bonus. That's sort of the no-brainer that you would expect to have happen. I'm going to get some more coffee, use the bathroom really quick, and I will be right back. Okay. Thanks for bearing with me. Alrighty. The Seahawks Network, I DM'd you on Instagram about the Carson signing, but you never got back. I'll hit you up on the Instagram about your video idea. Oh, yeah. I'm rarely on the Instagram account like I should be. I've been meaning to build it up, Seahawks Network. So I got to work on that thing. But I will check with you on the Instagram. So I'll respond back to you on it. Randall McDaniel, the Kenny Golladay contract will turn out to be a mistake, in my opinion. $18 million pushes DK into quarterback money. I've been anticipating, Randall, that the contract would be $23 million per year moving into next year. So I've long anticipated that this is where the contract for the wide receiver market's going to be going. Personally, if he proves out to have another year where he takes another step forward, 1,300, 1,400, 1,450, and 13 touchdowns, it plays with the consistency that he's shown. I've got no problem paying a guy that's going to be 24 years old, $23 million per year, who's a generational wide receiver talent. Wide receivers are valuable in this league, and upper level ones like that are very valuable. So I got no issue making that payment to him at that time. It does mean the rest of the wide receiver core has got to be built in a certain specific kind of fashion, being that you try to go a little cheaper at the rest of the wide receiver positions, or lower end deals. But I'm okay with that. I make my pace with that. The Seahawks Network, I don't think we restructure Bobby because that would just make it harder for us to get rid of him in 1 or 2 years because of the salary being turned into bonus over the rest of the contract. And I don't think they would turn the rest of the bonus money over the rest of the bonus into his contract, Seahawks Network. So right now, next year as we stand, Bobby saves you $16.6 million if you release him next year. If you were to convert this year's base money, which I think he's about $10 million in base this year, something like that, right? You convert that 10 to bonus, okay? Now that goes over the course of the contract, which is like, I think there's 3 years remaining. So it's like a third of the bonus pays to this year, which means that you're on the hook for approximately $6 million next year in dead money hit. So my bottom line on that is that you still essentially, you could convert his base money to bonus this year if you get Bobby to sign off on that. Then at that point, you release Bobby because you're done next year with him. You still save $10 million at that point. So it goes from $16 million to $10 million in contract savings, even if you convert this year's base to bonus. But I understand why you don't want to necessarily commit long-term to him. So that makes sense. Randall McDaniel says, Jacob Heaps says, I love how you call him Jacob Heaps, Randall. Jacob Heaps says he expects Dunlap back. When Heaps talks, BS walks. Yeah, Jake's a funny guy. So he's got, he's got some takes. We'll see. I hope he's right. I hope he's correct. Tommy, I know we're getting a new offensive scheme. Do you think we might mix it up a bit on defense? Could be an interesting way to get Blair on the field. I've long been interested, Tommy, by the thought process of doing like a 3 safety look. I feel like that's where the NFL is going to eventually kind of move towards, away from the 3 linebackers in base and more to the 3 potential, safeties, and with 2 of the guys being real good cover guys, almost corner-like cover abilities. Seems like where the game's kind of going. And it'd sure be nice to find a way to get Blair on the football field where right now there's not a pathway. Ugo Amadi's your starting slot safety. He's not going to probably overturn Quandre Diggs at free safety, nor Jamal Adams at strong safety. So outside of maybe being able to move a guy like Marquise Blair to the will, which he's probably too light to do that necessarily, though they've moved him to every other position so far, it's going to be hard for him to find his way onto the field. But you'd like to see them get creative with that, get the best talent out on the football field, right? Tommy, don't have some of your best talent sitting on the bench just because their position's taken. Find a way to utilize them. Dad Terrific, who has the most upside between Dunbar and Witherspoon? It's a great question, Dad Terrific. I'm going to go with Witherspoon, Dad Terrific, because Witherspoon came into this league as a very, very young player. And injuries, as we've seen with other players on our squad, can sometimes hurt your early performance when you're fighting through trying to get on the field, but then you got something nagging and hurting you. And now last year, he plays his best football as he's getting into be 25 years old, just heading into the prime of his career. Richard Sherman is certainly high on him right now. He's a guy who was picked in the 3rd round, checks all the boxes for what Seahawks look for in cornerbacks, familiarity with the scheme. I think with Dunbar, the injury history has always been there with that guy. He's never been able to stay healthy. That's my main knock with him and any sort of upside he has. He's just a guy who can't stay out on the football field. And he's not the best of tacklers either. Witherspoon's not the best of tacklers. They're very similar kind of players in that respect. But I'll go with Witherspoon being a little bit of the younger guy and not necessarily the injury kind of stuff that I see with Dunbar. Randall says Hollister's really good if he's wide open and doesn't have to break a tackle, especially at the 1-yard line to win the division. Well put. Well stated, Randall. Brian, how you doing, Brian Roberts? Sir Brandon, thank you so dang much for effing intellectual love, absorbing it like a sponge. I appreciate that, Brian. Glad you can sponge away, my guy. I'm glad you like. Seahawks Network, Dunbar and Witherspoon at their best would be very good, along with Adams and Diggs with Ugo and Marquise Blair in the slot, big nickel spot. That would be a good, solid core. I think DJ Reed might be better than Dunbar, though, right now. So I don't know. Oh, Brian, thank you for mentioning that. Do please slam that like button if you happen to be in here watching right now. Helps me out tremendously. You'll be doing my channel a big favor by doing that, and I appreciate it. Why? Breaks my heart if they trade Bobby, but man, it just makes so much sense. Bobby, Brooks, middle linebacker, KJ, weak side linebacker, Bruce the Sam. All that for less money and picks. That's it, man. You put way too much money really in the linebacker position last year. Last year, what did we have invested in the linebacker when you factor in KJ and Brooks's and even a 3rd rounder like Cody Barton, who's not cheap? You're damn near probably what, $27 million for the linebacking core on a 4-3 defense, being that the 4-3 linebackers don't rush the passer really. So it's not a good way to allocate resources, and I'm glad if they were to move off of that in a different direction from it. Put the resources into the defensive line. Take them out of the linebacker, put them on the defensive edges, and watch the defense be so much better. Clara, love the facial hair. I am. I'm the bearded Brandon now. That's my new nickname. Glad you like, Clara. You took my advice. I did. I took your advice. Hope things are going good for you over there in New York. Spring's cracking through, and that winter is probably hopefully stopped for you. Thoughts on Deshaun Watson to the Niners? Boy, these allegations coming out of Watson have been wild to watch happen. Just the deluge that's just dropped. So I don't know what that's going to do as far as affecting him, if it makes it more likely he's traded or less likely he's traded. Probably less likely you're able to get the kind of draft return that they would have hoped to have gotten with these things hanging over his head. Probably a lot of it, Claire, is going to be based on where this stuff goes from a criminal process. Because even if he doesn't have the stuff happen on the criminal level where the police are investigating him and maybe he's got charges pending, even if this goes to being a civil lawsuit, the NFL can still ding you and suspend you for civil stuff. So they could still come back at him and hit him hard on the civil side of things, especially if there's multiple instances that are able to build up on this. So it's a fear for me right now, Clara. I'm scared to death of Watson arriving on the Niners. It would be just like the NFC West to pull that kind of move off this offseason, and it'd just be hard because right now the Niners are looking at like Sam Darnold type as they're fixing for quarterback, or picking Trey Lance with their number one pick. So they don't have a lot of great options right there as far as being competitive next year at the quarterback position, plus throwing Garoppolo back out there again for another year. So I hope they don't do it, but it's a big worry because the Niners haven't done a lot so far this offseason. They're sort of just sitting there laying in wait, man. They're laying in wait. Randall McDaniel, what would DK fetch? A top 10 pick? Yeah, I think he would probably fetch you a top 10 pick, maybe a top 10 plus. The new team's got to pay him, so that does have to factor in on how you're moving him. But yeah. Fane JP. Russell wants out? Well, maybe looks like he's going to stay for at least another year, though, whether he wants out or not. Seattle's not going to eat a $39 million dead money hit, especially when the team that they're trying to trade to are giving them such low ball offers. The Seahawks Network, it boggles my mind that 31 teams passed on DK twice because he couldn't run around some cones in under 8 seconds. Sometimes these scouts outthink themselves way too much. I do think in his case they really, really did. I think there were some other factors that came into play on that network. Number one, he played with god-awful quarterback play in college, and that really hurt his value. You had another receiver there that the quarterback was more apt to throw to Brown than he was to throw to DK, and just he was very limited as a quarterback. The other thing was the neck injury. He had the neck injury in the final year of his career. Those neck injuries, as we've seen with Cam Chancellor, as we've seen with Cliff Averill, those things can be career enders really fast the second they get to a pretty bad state. And there were a lot of NFL teams, I think, that were scared off on that. But at the end of the day, you're right. A lot of teams overthought themselves, just overthought the process. Randall says, I assumed we've moved Diggs this offseason. Think a Pro Bowl safety gets us a third? Not unless you're packaging, Randall, like a guy like Rasheem Green with it. I think your best bet's really going to be in the realm of still getting only about a 5th round for what you traded for a couple years ago. Because eventually whoever trades for him is probably going to want to then pay him to a new deal, not just have him for a 1-year rental. King Aladdin. How you doing, King? Hi, everyone. I currently have a heart murmur. I'm sorry to hear that, King. I hope you're taking good care of yourself and keeping the doctors taking a look at you and staying healthy. Appreciate you checking out the show. UE2K, Carson and Penny are big on talent, but short on availability. We've seen this before, both likely to get hurt again. Running back situation is similar to the defensive end situation. Sorely in need of a new strategy. Yeah, I mean, you need to add bodies, UE2K. You do need to add bodies, that's for sure. It's hard to build into the 3rd and 4th realm of running backs on your roster and put a lot of quality into that, put a lot of money into that. So you are kind of stuck with where it is right now. I've spoken this before. When you drafted Rashad Penny, according to the Seahawks front office, he had some of the cleanest medical history that you had ever had of any player coming out of college. So they literally made that pick with Penny with the view of trying to get a guy whose availability would be there. This was amidst Carson and his injury concerns. So they're trying when their strategy to go for the healthy guys. They're trying to wait that out and give it a measure, but just hasn't worked. Lance Johnson trading Lockett with Russ makes sense in many ways, Cap being the most obvious. Savings from Lockett would offset some of Russ. McDougal last year was a bit that way. Agreed, Lance. Agreed. And maybe you get it, you're not like, because you understand you're not going to probably pay Lockett the new deal. You put him in there, you get some value back. It does make a lot of sense. And it would increases Russ's value to whoever you move him to. It just increases that much in draft returns. So I like it. I like the thought process of doing something like that. Why? Median are for most running backs is 3 yards per carry, as is Carson. Median average. Carson, however, has very few carries under 2. He might not have the top end speed, but he also does not get stopped at the line of scrimmage. Yeah, that's why I call him the 3 yards in a cloud of dust guy, because he'll get you a little bit more. It's a guy. If there's 1 yard there, he'll get you 3 yards. And if there's 4 yards there, he'll get you 7 yards. Or if there's negative 2 yards, he'll get you back at the line of scrimmage. But where some running backs will take a play also, and the other side of that is the other running backs can, if there's 40 yards there, he's going to get you 25. So there's a flip side to it as well, as far as the big plays and the limited long speed of Chris Carson. But he's got some value. Thomas E. says, can't believe that Alexander is our only player to ever win the MVP. Yeah. Well, and I think it's been correct though, Thomas E., right? Like there's not been a lot of guys that you could have necessarily pointed to and said, well, this guy should have won that MVP, and this year he got robbed. I think it's probably about right. I don't know that there's been any year that Russell Wilson necessarily should have won the MVP, maybe like 2017 or something like that. You could have maybe made the argument for him. But there's not been a guy that's really come up that I would say, even Largent, I don't know which year you'd pick that you'd say would be his MVP year. Because he had really great years, but was he statistically like blowing past everybody? Not necessarily. Though I could be talked into with Largent, Tommy. I got my soft spot for Steve, so I could be talked into that one. Mario says this was supposed to be Russell's MVP year, and he blew it. Did indeed. Fell off at the end there. Randall, Hawks big extensions usually happen right before or during camp. Why not early? So we have an idea of cap space in the offseason. Do they know the deal's coming and accrue that money? Maybe too busy this time of year. They've given extensions in the past at different times, Randall. I mean, if you go over a 6-year span, it's been all over the map where they've done the extensions. Sometimes at the end of the year, sometimes just after the year. I don't know if there's one place they do or don't. They haven't given out as many extensions lately because they haven't as many good players to give extensions to. They've been perfectly happy to watch guys walk in free agency rather than give them those extensions. I mean, that's one of the reasons why we're sitting on next year having nearly $100 million in cap space, because they just haven't been giving those extensions out. But I would have to think that they have something in place. If they're looking at any of these guys, they've already got the metrics in place of what these guys are going to, when they eventually get around to it, what the contract parameters are going to look like. Tommy says, I'd say Pete stole the MVP from Russ by changing the scheme. Certainly hurt him too. Yeah, that certainly hurt him. Then going back to dialing back the big plays, dialing back the offense certainly did. Tack Palma, 93, new subscriber. Much love from Tacoma. Go Hawks. Tack Palmer, thank you for your subscription. I appreciate it. And welcome aboard the Hawks Nest. We're getting bigger every day here. Bigger every day, but I appreciate you. Thank you so much. 312 Rams just signed. Who the Rams just signed? Deshaun Jackson. Thoughts on that signing? Well, they'll get 2 or 3 games out of him this year. I mean, he's one of the most ultimate guys that, like, for the last 6 years of his career has basically just run off of the reputation of the early on of his career and then the 2 to 3 game flashes he provides every season. So he's done. He's a really slight guy has played a lot of football and just, his body's broken down at this point. I mean, he's still probably very fast, but how many games are you really going to get out of him? I don't know. I don't know that there's a lot left there. King Aladdin also subscribed. Thank you for subscribing, King Aladdin. Got a few new subscribers today. I salute both of you folks and appreciate you. Thank you. But I'm not scared. That signing doesn't scare me. Deshaun Watson, the Rams, doesn't freak me out. He's too injury prone. I mean, he must have played like 9 games cumulatively over the last 4 years. I agree with Seahawks Network. Jackson should just retire. Of course, if somebody's going to pay him, Seahawks Network, and people are going to keep paying him for not playing, I mean, why wouldn't you keep going, Oh, this will be the year he gives us 5 games. Jeffrey O'Kelly, got to pick 2 of the 3 for the team. Clowney, Dunlap, or Kerrigan. The team's got to come away with 2 of those 3 guys, Jeffrey. I agree with you there. Of course, if I have my pick, I'm going Clowney, Dunlap. But I'm with you, man. Get 2 solid veteran pass rushers. Not even have to put them under the lens of got to be starters. We need good rotational guys, good rotational pass rushers. That's what we need, 2 of them. I think if you do that, you stabilize everything along that defensive line and you turn it into one of the true strengths of the team. especially if we can get some development out of one of these young cats. Seahawks Network, I remember back in 2016 preseason, I was in on the Trayvon Boykin hype train, if there ever one was. So whenever Heaps came into the game, I got pissed off. One's in jail and one's got a family. It's very true. Very true. Lance Johnson, we might as well just accept that Adams is a super undersized rush linebacker. I'm not quite there yet, Lance. I'm not quite yet there. I know that he's gotten dinged around for his coverage scores last year by Pro Football Focus, and then certainly by the eye test coverage scores that we saw where he got beat down the field by Edelman, a slot guy, and then there's Trayvon Diggs down there beating him against Buffalo on a key third down in that game. What I will go back on, though, is this. If you look through the first couple of years of his career with New York, he graded very well by Pro Football Focus in coverage. This last year and having the problem with the grade score not showing out very well was kind of an outlier to what we've seen over the course of his career and what you saw with him out of college. I'm going to fall back in line with thinking that he can still be a decent coverage guy. It's not the strength of his game, but it's a part of his game that I think is more of a strength than it is a liability. And I tend to believe that a lot of those multiple injuries that he sustained over the course of the year just started to add up and kind of make it harder for him to perform where they need to perform. He looked like kind of a shell of himself in that Ram game. And he just couldn't get, both arms with the labrums and the broken fingers and the elbow injury. I mean, it's a lot stacked up over the course of the year, and he's a warrior going out there to play through it, but you're not going to be at your best when you're running through that many injuries. Seahawks Network says, I thought DJ Reed was even better than Shaq. I was just saying that Witherspoon and Dunbar have some untapped potential. They do, and certainly with Dunbar and Witherspoon, Seahawks Network, they're both bigger cornerbacks who fit more into your mold of what you tend to look for in the position, whereas DJ Reed's 5'9", and they're really going outside their comfort zone, starting him out on the outside. But he was better than Shaq last year. I really like what I saw to Reed, and I'd like to keep him slotted in as that number one corner over there, one of our two starters, until I see something out of Dunbar or Witherspoon to overtake him. I just want us to be able to stack that depth at cornerback again, and just be running 2, 3, 4 deep. Jarl, LO, stop with the DK trade talk. Just stop. I agree with Jarl. I don't want to trade DK. I'm perfectly happy. Like I said, I'm happy paying the $23, $24 million per year. He is worth it. Mark Hoffman, will Seahawks win a Super Bowl? Sure, Mark. Why not? I'm always going to be a homer on these type of questions. I'm never going to be no, they're not. They've got a little more work to do this offseason, Mark, with the roster where it is. But I'm going to go ahead and anticipate that work gets done. That they're not just going to say, we're good, we're going to stand pat, go to the draft. This is a Super Bowl winning roster. I think that they know that there's more work that needs to be done and that they need to improve. So, why not? M. Webb, would you rather have Clowney or Dunlap? If they were the same price, who do you think will actually get more money in free agency? I tend to believe that Dunlap will get more money in free agency because he's had more production than Clowney has recently. Not a tremendous amount more, but he would have gotten more. I'd lean towards Dunlap because I know Dunlap gives me some certainty. I know what he's bringing to the table. I think Clowney brings you maybe potential more upside than what you can get in Dunlap. But I need certainty right now. If I only can pick one, if I only get one veteran pass rusher, I need absolute certainty. I need to know what I'm getting out of that pass rush. Not, perhaps, if everything works right, it'll become this. No. He comes in, generates that pass rush I need right out the gate. So I'd go Dunlap by a hair over Clowney, but not by a wide mark. Jace, someone on another Seahawks channel said that Diggs is easily worth a second-round pick. Sometimes people amaze me even after I explain to him every reason why he isn't. People get locked into things, Jace, and I'm probably as guilty of this as anybody else. When I get an idea of something, I will hold on to it, confirmation bias and all of that. And people will overvalue things like going to a Pro Bowl or interceptions. But at the end of the day, it's kind of is what it is. Has he become a remarkably better player than the 5th round pick that you traded him for 2 years ago? Is him 2 years older off the 5th round you get before going to suddenly improve by his performance on the field with the Hawks? I don't know that would, especially considering the new team's got to pay him. We're going to have to trade for the talent and we got to pay for the We're going to get double doinked. I don't know that that's there, Jace. I don't. Randall, but glad you're holding the line. Glad you're doing what you can to try to educate these suckers. Randall says, if we trade Russ and draft, let's say Lance, does Pete handle him like he did Russ? I wonder if he regrets how he handled him and how the locker room reacted. Answer, probably somewhere in the middle. maybe I still follow the line at the point that, but Pete's pretty locked in on who he is and what he is and how he is, and that there's not a lot of changing in Coach Carroll at this point in time. He's going to ride how he wants to ride, especially he's beginning to ride into the sunset. He's going to do the Frank Sinatra my way approach. So I think he probably sticks to the way he sticks to, and he probably stays with how he's done it in the past. So he probably would handle him, in my opinion, pretty much exactly how he handled Russ. I think, I would be more of like minded. That would be probably the way that they lean. Jarl, expecting the Seahawks to try and get draft capital for DK is like suggesting Disney stop making MCU films. Maybe so, but I do like your idea of he's not on the table. He's one of our sacred cows. Giovanni Bito, I just came in. I just want to say I love your page. Just give me your honest opinion on Carson returning. Well, thank you, Giovanni. I've seen you in here a bunch before. It's good to have you back in play. I was certainly not in on signing Carson on a $7 million a year contract. I wanted to not be up at that realm of things. I think you can't pay running backs in this modern market. It's proven out that, especially a guy that's got some injury-prone stuff, that's been lingering with him throughout his time, every single season that he's been on your roster. With that said, the market got so depressed for the running back position. So few teams were willing to put any money on the table that at $2.5 million on a first-year cap hit, Giovanni, it becomes a no-brainer. You got to pull the trigger on that deal. It turns into a 2-year deal, essentially, at the end of the day. You might have a little bit of dead money hit to take next year, but as I've spoken about, right now I'm not worried about next year's cap and the $100 million that we have available to spend. I'm worried about this year's cap. So keeping that $2.5 million down as low as we did in this circumstance is phenomenal. Hard to look at this as a bad move. I've got 2 A- grades on 2 of the moves this offseason, one being Gerald Everett, the other being this Chris Carson signing. They knocked it out of the park on this one, no doubt about it. And thanks for hopping in, Giovanni. Seahawks Network, 2017 Russ would have won MVP 100% if Blair Walsh put the ball through the uprights a few more times. Blair had himself a tough year that year. He could have. At least he would have gotten a vote, right? Seahawks Network. He at least would have gotten a couple of votes. Randall McDaniel says Chris Carson similar to O.J. Anderson. New York Giants, early 90s. Very much. A guy who once had, I believe, 33 carries in the Super Bowl in 1990. And he's got that key signature moment, Randall. Remember in the Super Bowl, if you guys ever want to watch a cool highlight, O.J. Anderson's running out on the edge against the Bills. And the defender's coming up, and he does the Sugar Ray Leonard wind up of the arm, like he's going to lay an uppercut into the guy. So he does this. He's running full steam. He goes, whoosh, and windmills his arm around as the defender's coming, and then just boom, throws the forearm right in the defender's face. Absolutely would be a penalty in today's game, but an awesome moment, and it happened in the Super Bowl at that. But yeah, I'd say that's a pretty similar comparison to just very great comparison, actually, to just tough as hell runners, just tough runners. Seahawks Network, yeah, I get that one guy can lose a team a game because of the events that led up to those moments, but if Walsh just makes a few more field goals, we're in the playoffs for sure. He was bad that year, and we needed him on a couple of those kicks, Network. Sometimes you need your kicker to be at least decent. You don't even be amazing in every moment, but he was just not even decent that year. Tommy Eden, what if we got Scotty Miller somehow? That would be so good with DK and his speed, and then Everett underneath. Yeah, Scotty would be a great slot receiver. He's got legitimate speed. He's legitimately fast. Not just a quick guy, but a fast guy. Scotty fit in well, Tommy. Love the suggestion. Great suggestion. Nas says Rams just got Deshaun Jackson. Not worried about it. Not worried about it, Nas. He doesn't scare me. And like, how much is he going to really be able to play? Their receiving core is pretty good right now. They're already 3 deep before he arrives. But I don't think he's got that much in him left to go. I think he's just milking the NFL cow right now. He's got his lips on the udder, and he's just like, maybe a couple more million this year. Maybe a couple more million this year. I like to watch NFL. Jamal has to be good in the secondary this year. He's got to be better in coverage. I like to watch NFL. We're not paying you $16 million a year just for your pass rushing abilities and a good tackler in the run game. You've got to be good in coverage as well. You need to be a complete safety at that price. Robert G says Carson is back. He is. The bull in the china shop has returned. And we're all pretty happy by it, Robert. We are, I think, all pretty happy on it. Randall McDaniel says just annihilate that like button. I just annihilated that like button. You consider doing the same. Yes, please do smash on that like button if you happen to be just hopping in on this or watching this recorded. It does help me out considerably. Puts me on the algorithm, makes me show up for all those people looking for Seahawks news. Why? Adams was a top 4 coverage safety for PFF 2019 and 2018 and best safety. Adams injured early last year, never the same. A healthy Adams is a defensive player of the year candidate. Yeah, why? This is one of the things that annoys me a little bit about the folks that are on board with trading Adams is that they operate off the standpoint that last year is the given rule for him. Oh, he's just a box safety. You don't pay $16 million for a box safety. And it's, again, people just always try to simplify an argument down to its base level rather than allowing for nuance and the details in the full spectrum to be viewed. This is one of those cases where look at Adams historically, and he's been a good coverage guy, And if we're going to look at the details of this, frankly, I don't really want him covering Stephon Diggs on a key third down. Why has our defense got any place where he's being asked to do that? I don't really want him on Julian Edelman in coverage down the field. I don't really want him on Cooper Kupp 50 yards down the field one-on-one. I don't want that. We should be asking more of the question is, why is our scheme putting him in that kind of position to cover wide receivers as a strong safety? How often did you see Cam Chancellor being asked to cover a slot wide receiver in his career? So he'll be good, but put him on tight ends. Put him on running backs, and he'll be good in coverage. Stick him on number 1 wide receivers, then it's going to be a little bit more, it's going to look a little bit more not so good. Tommy says, I think Jamal will be better at coverage this year with a full season, injuries healed, and maybe not put in so heavy of blitz mode this year. Hard to be in kill the quarterback mode and cover mode. Yeah, and he blitzed more last year than he ever had in any point in time of his career. That's coming from the scheme in the prior year that was one of the most blitz-heavy schemes in the entire NFL. So there's something to be said for that. More opportunities, again, put more into like covering running backs, covering tight ends as he was prior early on in his career. And he'll actually show out pretty well in that. Why says Lance threw 40 passes total when he was behind his entire NCAA career. No. It's going to be a little bit of the problem this year with a lot of prospects. Why? It's going to be the case with a lot of folks. You're not going to have a lot of film to go off of. There's a lot of extrapolation going on in this draft. This is why Seattle was so willing to move on from their 1st and 3rd round pick in this draft for Adams. They knew that there was going to be a crap show aspect to this draft. You don't have the combine. You don't have the extra year of game tape you used to have to make sure determinations about a player, to see where a player takes that extra step. And I'm looking through these prospects, and I'm having a hard time with it. I'm having a hard time figuring out where these guys sit when you have no 2020 tape and you're watching a sophomore, a true sophomore play. You're going, I think he'll take a step forward. So I think it's going to be the case with a lot of guys. It's certainly going to be the case with quarterbacks as well. With Lance, I think you've just got to look at it more through the lens of that prior year in 2019. He's 19 years old and he's out there dominating the competition. 19 years old, 2019, throws 43 touchdowns, no interceptions. He was a lot of the reason why he didn't have to play from behind. And again, one of my more quarterbacks, if I'm sitting there and Seattle's got to pick a quarterback and we're in the top 12 and he's there, I would take him all day long. Tommy Eden says, can't trade DK. Where are you going to find a wide receiver who plays like Cam Chancellor and is as fast as a cheetah? He is the big wideout Pete always hoped for, sealed the deal in Arizona running it down. I agree, Tommy. I think he stays here. I don't think there's any chance he gets traded. Seahawks Network, Lance has raw talent. Let him sit behind a competent quarterback for a year or two, and I think you got yourself a damn good quarterback. I agree, Seahawks Network. I don't think you have to play him right out the gate. You can give him that extra year because he is a young cat. But he's a guy with a lot of upside to his game. Jarl says, DK literally is the future of our offense for the next decade. Russ or no, barring a career-altering injury. Agreed, Jarl. I'm not on board. Let me make it clear. I do not want to trade DK. People ask me about a given scenario, I'll discuss it. But where I stand and where I want to remain is that we do sign him to that contract extension next season. Giovanni Bito, how much cap room did you say they have next year? As it stands right now, we have the 5th most amount of cap space, and we're sitting at approximately, I'm going to anticipate right now that the cap goes back up to $200 million next year, Giovanni. If it's that, then we're sitting in the neighborhood of about $90 million where we stand right now. $90 million of cap space. Now, if you cut Bobby Wagner next year at that point, you would create an additional $16.6 million in cap space. So you're going to be at over $100 million to spend at that point. So a lot of dough to spend. Roxanne says, like button properly spanked. Thank you, Roxanne. The Seahawks Network, did you see the Dolphins cut Isaiah Wilson 3 days after trading for him? Dude doesn't care about football. Man was a first-round pick not even a year ago and has been on 2 teams and unemployed. I would expect that this is not the last we see of Isaiah Wilson into the future. He probably takes a year off, realizes he has to go get a real job, realizes how crappy a real job is, and then suddenly you're going to start a rejuvenation to his love of football. I would expect we see something like that with this young man. That's what tends to be what goes on with these kind of guys that, your David Irving types from the Cowboys, right? I expect him to come back into the fold at some point, but brutal. And this was a guy that I liked a lot in last year's draft. I had him a guy that Seattle should have targeted in the first round. Now, I didn't have any of his, I'm not privy to the reports that the front office has put through on these guys to some of maybe how is his record? Is he a guy that, is committed to football? Does he love football? All those things that I don't have that information. I don't have access to it. So I can't factor it into my potential, here's who Seattle should draft approach of things. But that does seem to be the case, is that there were maybe some red flags there with him that just he doesn't have a love of football, wasn't as into it as much, which sucks because freakishly he's very talented, could be one of the better right tackles in the sport if he had his head on right. Maybe he will come back at some point. Mario Lara, from the previous comment, if Russell leaves, I'm following. And that's coming from a 15-year Seattle fan. Is anyone else following Russ? I don't know if you're going to get a lot of people following. Mario, at the end of the day, we're fans of the team, not the player. I can be a fan of the player and the team. I can do both, but if I got to pick one or the other, I'm picking the team. And I love me Russ, but no, I'm going to be staying a Seahawks fan if Russell happens to move on. But hopefully, Mario, we keep him. Hopefully, he's here now for the foreseeable future. Randall McDaniel, I might extend Diggs. Pro Bowl aside, he's an above-average safety, ball hawk, 3 years, $27 million, along those lines. Would it be too much at a position, assuming Adams 16 to 18 million APY? Blair scares me. Well, I think that's the big issue I have with it at that point, Randall, is essentially, as Seattle has kind of done anyway with certain picks like LJ Collier or Jordan Brooks, now with Marquise Blair, you're going to essentially be taking these high-round selected picks and just be punting them, be doing basically just drop kicking the value completely and not trying to take advantage of them. Because then if you sign Diggs to an extension, there's no way for Blair to get on the football field. So you're just going to get rid of Blair and just, again, lose that second round pick for nothing. And a guy who might be, for all intents and purposes, Randall, might be a better player than Diggs at the free safety position. We don't know that. So I wouldn't be willing to give Diggs an extension, not when I've got to be paying Adams an extension. I think you can pay one of the safeties, the other. I don't think you could afford to pay both safeties at this point in time. Seahawks Preseño. Hey, bro. So what are your thoughts on Jamal Adams? Well, I think that we're in one of two camps at this point. Hard to say one or the other because we don't have any reports. I need to have some news that I can operate off of to intelligently make a prediction about what will happen. And right now on the Adams front, all has been quiet. I still expect them to sign him to a contract extension before this offseason finishes out, but there is a small chance here, Preseño, that he is going to be traded. That they look at the sunk cost fallacy of things and they say, not a fit, don't want to pay him, save some money, we'll recoup a first round back in a trade for him and call it a day. I hope they don't necessarily do it in that realm of things, but that's a possibility here as we don't see an extension. As every day goes by, there's not an extension announced with him and the cap space continues to get eaten up. So it is worth monitoring. We got to just kind of keep our eye on the situation, but I think that they eventually will pay him. And I do think the market is going up. We just had a safety in Justin, the Justin kid, I can't think of his last name, from Denver, just signed his contract. He pushed that mark up over Budda Baker by about $500,000. So you would expect now Jamal to push it up another $500,000 on the next deal, getting up into that $16 million range. Seahawks Network says Blair Enforcer 2.0. Mark my words. I'd like to see him given that try, Seahawks Network. I'm not a guy that likes seeing high round picks not being given a chance, and then we all come to a conclusion that they can't play, and then you give up on them, and then you watch them go flourish for somewhere else. Because that is what is going to happen if we continue to do this kind of model of things in roster building. So I think that it's more advantageous to find a place for Blair eventually in the future, if not for this next season. Terrence Lynn, how you doing, Terrence? Who do you think we go after next, and how much cap space do we have? Well, Terrence, we probably only have a couple $1 million of cap space as we stand right now. You have a couple of different things that you can do as far as restructure. You could restructure Jaron, Tyler Lockett. Maybe you could even restructure a guy like Quandre Diggs. You can move some money around and create some more cap space there. The most straightforward way to create cap space, Terrence, though, is within Russell Wilson's contract. It was agreed at the time of his contract that Seattle can convert this year's base money to bonus. That creates $10 million of space instantaneously. So you go from about $2 to $3 million where we stand right now to $13 million of cap space by doing just that alone. I would expect that's probably the next move one way or another that they do make. If I was to say who they go after next, I would make the prediction that they probably go after next Carlos Dunlap. That they know that they need to cement that defensive line help, get the defensive end in here, get some edge rush in here, that would be the next place to hit. If not that wide receiver, if I make a wild guess, let's say Antonio Brown, just to make a wild guess of it. Those would be the two positions I think that they would attack next. They do still have some talent on the board in free agency. Jeffrey A. Thistle, and welcome in, Terrence. Jeffrey A. Thistle. Cam was more than a great talent. He was the heart of the late Legion of Boom. It's very true. Very true. UEGK, Deshaun Jackson. His mother smells of elderberries. And as for the lambs, I felt in their general direction. Nice, Yui. I love the Monty Python reference, bro. Beautiful, beautiful reference. And I do as well. I felt in the general direction of the Los Angeles Rams. They are a sniveling little cowardice of people. Why do I would take a risk with Mac Jones for the top 15 pick or Kellen Mond at the bottom of the first round. I'm more on the Kellen Mond over Mac Jones boat. I know Mac Jones has got a lot of people that like him, but I think Kellen Mond's got a little more upside potential. Mac Jones is probably a little more of a safer prospect with a higher floor, but I don't like taking high floor guys in the first round. So I go for ceiling in the first round, especially quarterback, and Mond's got a hell of a ceiling with his ability to sling it. Seahawks Network, Jeffrey agreed. Did you see the Flemno Raps video on him? You should check it out. Oh, Flemno did a deal on Cam? I'll check that out. That'd be cool. That's hella cool. I like Flemno stuff. D-Nugget says, I too spanked that like button like Roxanne. Well, thank you, D-Nugget. I appreciate the spanking. I like to watch NFL. We can get some good players on free agency next year. You said $90 million, and I think we need to let go of Bobby Wagner soon. Yeah, you got $90 million, plus you can create $16.6 million in cap space by moving on from Bobby next year, and you can add to that $90 million with the release of Bobby at that time. That's a lot of space. That's a lot of cap space. That's a lot of mozzarella. Giovanni Beto, what do you think of signing Antonio Brown this offseason? I think Antonio Brown certainly is not at the level of ability he once was. I don't think he's fallen off a cliff or that he's done. Certainly played pretty good for Tampa Bay last year when they utilized him. I think he would make Russell really happy. Russell's pretty tight with them, and he seems to have wanted to bring him now. He's now making his third recruitment of Antonio Brown in the last 2 years. So I think he wants him here. I think it would make Russell happy. I'd love to do some moves that would make Russell happy and improve the team at the same time. That's what we call a win-win. So I'm completely on board with it, Giovanni. Completely on board with it. I like it a lot. Seahawks Network, I'll allow you guys onto the Marquise Blair hype train bandwagon next year. Just know I was here from the beginning. I was with you, Seahawks Network. I've been on with Blair from the get-go, man. His loss last year hurt. Steven Donovan Schwartz. Hey, bro, how goes it? I'm doing amazing, man. Amazing. He says, maybe you already were asked, answered, but curious, who would you target as a center in the draft if the Hawks choose to do so? I would prefer that over Posick. I think Steven Posic's a stopgap right now, or he's a hedge for the draft, where I think they probably have an eye to looking at the center in the draft, but they're also aware of really I haven't looked deep as much as I probably need to in the centers in the draft beyond these top 3 guys, being Dickerson, Myers, and Humphrey. So I've got to go deeper on the guys that exist beyond that. But I would like to, with that second round pick, take a look at the centers. The top end guy's Dickerson. He's the guy with the most upside. Myers is probably your safest, where he's just going to be a good, solid center in this league. And then Creed Humphrey has got maybe a little bit of upside, but maybe some potential of not being great as well, some downside potential to him as well. So he's got a little more of a fluctuation to him as an in-between between those two guys as far as boom or bust approach to him a little bit more so, I think. But, yeah, you could get those centers in the draft, and then you just have them compete, Steven. Posick and the new guy compete and let the best man win out. I like that approach to it. But I think they signed Posick with an eye towards he's a guy, if you can't find a center, you know he can start someone to give you league average play, but he can play a little guard too. I think that interested them. Randall says, get a couple of pass rushers, and our D can be top 5. Yep, I agree. Two upper-level passers. You got Dunlap and Clowney on the outside. This is a top 5 defense, in my opinion. This is a top 5 defense, in my opinion. I don't care what you do at the Sam or the Will. Top 5 defense at that point, in my opinion. UE2K, if we get 2 good defensive ends, the secondary will be fine. Pass rush is the cornerback's best friend. Just ask Sherman. Agreed, UE2K? Agreed. I maintained it's a cornerback who can cover for, a good upper-level cornerback can cover you maybe 5 or 6 seconds. But if your defensive line can't get to the quarterback in 8 to 9 seconds, 7 seconds, doesn't matter. He's gonna allow his man to get open. But on the inverse of it, you got a defensive line that can win the pass rush win rate game, which is get to the quarterback in under 2.5 seconds, generate that pass rush that we generated in 2013 and 14. Now the quarterback has less time to throw, less time for the routes to develop. Now they're rushed more often to get the ball out of their hands, throwaways, knockdowns, that type of thing. So one benefits the other doesn't necessarily benefit that. Defensive line benefits the corners. Good corners don't necessarily always benefit a defensive line, especially a defensive line that is wholly deficient in its ability to really generate much pass rush. Seahawks Network, I'm not saying Blair will be better than Cam, but Blair's got the speed Cam never had and the physicality Cam had. I also wouldn't be surprised if the ACL injury ruins his career. Brutal injury. It is a brutal injury. Guys are able to bounce back from ACL, especially if you're a young guy that suffers that injury. There's a lot higher chance that you can come back from it. But they're different players. But I do think that there's elements to Blair's game that he does better, elements of the game Cam did better. But I think he's got a lot of upside to him as well. Ethan's Tech World. How you doing, Ethan? I'm pretty happy with how free agency is going. I would like someone other than Posick. Now going forward, I want Dunlap back. But I do not want KJ back. It's time for Jordan Brooks. Yeah, I think Posick's not going to be that number 1 guy, as I was just speaking about just a second ago, Ethan. I think they're going to get another body there for center through the draft or by another means. And I think Dunlap's got to be the next biggest, if he wasn't already the biggest priority on their list for getting a free agent in here, he's got to be right there for them right now. The only worry I've got with Jordan Brooks is he can handle the will linebacker duties on early downs where they're going to be more running. But when you get him into passing situations where he's got a coverage in space, where he's got to play zone, which is what Seattle predominantly does do with their linebackers, is has them play zone. It's a weakness of his game. It's a weakness of his game going back to college, and it will continue to be a weakness of his game. You can minimize that weakness by moving him to the middle linebacker, because I think it's put a little bit more of a spotlight on him out there at that point. But that's the only place I do worry with Brooks is in the coverage game of the will. Because, of course, Ethan, what you did last year is you had KJ as the Sam linebacker on early downs, and then you were moving KJ back to the will on passing downs. So there was a reason they did that. Nas says, speaking of AB, I heard Russ is campaigning for him. That's what we're hearing as well, Nas. And I'm glad to hear it. And hopefully they listen on this one because I think it will improve the team. I know there's a locker room worries on him, but the guy's not going to sign a 3-year, $40 million deal. Where, oh my God, he turns into a locker room cancer and you can't get out of the deal. Hell, you can put it within the parameters of the contract that if he does step out of line, that you can cut him at any time and he's got to own back the bonus money and all that other stuff. So it doesn't preclude it necessarily. I'd love to see it happen. I think it'd be a good addition. Why? It's fun with the X Factor Seattle has on this team this year. Blair, Taylor, Penny, Disley, Robinson. Guys not being relied on to be great players, but if some of them do, Seattle becomes a monster. That's the realm I like them to be at for those reasons you said. Why? You have more certainty at other places, but they're back there in the background. They're lingering. And if one of them does pop, if of the 4 of Rasheem Green, LJ Collier, Darrell Taylor, and Alton Robinson, if one of them truly can pop, then bang, you're on takeoff mode, man. Your pass rush is lethal. You know, if LJ Collier can be a functional NASCAR 3-tech defensive tackle, oh my gosh, your pass rush becomes lethal. So yeah, it doesn't put a pressure on them where we have to get it from them, but just a couple of those guys give you some return, and man, you're cooking with gas now. Tommy Eden, is Adoree Jackson still available? Thoughts on him for a cornerback? Loved Adoree coming out of college. Fantastic player coming out of USC. Great little cornerback. The only problem with Adoree is that he is a slot corner only. That is, he's not a guy who can play on the outside, and then you factor in as well, he's got the injury concerns. We're stacked up too deep right now, Tommy, at the slot. So there's just nowhere really for him to be able to get on the football field at that point. But he's a really good player, one of the better slot corners in the league when he is playing, but injuries are a big concern for him. He's just not able to keep himself upright. Roxanne says Denver Broncos safety was Justin Simmons. That's who just got the new contract. That's right. So he's pushed the new contract for Jamal up by probably another $500,000. Even though he is a free safety rather than Jamal being a strong safety, I still do see it probably pushing it up another $500,000. And I've maintained for a while it's probably $16 million a year that gets it done with Jamal. That's probably what the final numbers come out to if he remains with Seattle and he doesn't just force his way out to try to get the biggest contract he can. Jeffrey at Thistle, I don't want any part of AB. I understand, Jeffrey. There's a lot of people that don't. So you're not alone on that one, and I do get it. I just don't want to be as hesitant to be out on a guy that's going to improve a team when there's not another upgrade out there that they're going to go to. You know, if Brett Swain or AB, I'm going AB. You know, honestly, even if it's AB and Reynolds from the Rams, I'm going AB. And sorry, my cat's doing a cry thing here. Must be a lizard outside. Seahawks Network. Yeah, man, that Blair injury was the most painful injury to watch in a long time. I was so excited for this guy's career that had so much potential. I can't emphasize how much potential he has. Oh, he does. He's got a ton of potential. And KJ just took his knee out. That was brutal play by KJ. On a play where he made a great tackle, by the way, Seahawks Network. Came up, made the play in the hole, threw down the guy in the hole, and then here comes KJ diving into his legs late. Bad play by KJ. Terrence Lynn, if we have so much cap space next year, who would you sign? Terrence Lynn, I haven't looked at the potential free agents so far next year. I'm just getting through this free agent period and then the draft, and then I'll look at it as we go forward into next year. So it's hard to say because even guys that you project out to be free agents right now, as we stand right now, could then get locked up into multi-year deals as the season go along, could be nailed then for the franchise tag if they play out. We need another year of production to see where those potential players will be at in their career. It's a little bit harder right now where we stand to make that kind of prediction necessarily, but you have so much cap space to spend at that point. And let's face it as well, the one thing I can say is many teams this year have decided they don't want to take the pain this year. They don't want to bleed out the bleeding that needs to be bled. So what they've all done is they've taken the first year impact and the first year hit on the multi-year deals that have been signed, and they've lowered it down so that the cap hits a crease a lot more bigger into the next couple of years. That's going to reduce those teams' cap hit going into the next season and the year after, which again makes you that team that's in that, you're riding a little high at that point, and as far as you're going to be able to go out there and pluck some good free agents. But I would rather they sacrifice a little bit of that future cap space to create cap space for the today, the now. Get us some more space right now. It's more valuable to do it now than it is to hold on to $100 million for next year. Why says Hawks fans that have watched for 4 years know the 3 deep zone starts with the 4-man front. Facts, man. It's where they want to be at. And what Why speaking to is you drop your 2 corners. And they play that cloud coverage back. Free safety takes the center of the field deep. And then you've got your linebackers covering up the zones, taking away buzzing the flats. It's where they like to be ideally played and play out, where you just squeeze those zones, squeeze the room there for a quarterback to get a tight window throw in. Which you lose, by the way, when you're having to blitz as much as we did last year. Part of the reason we had so many jailbreak plays defensively was because we were blitzing as much as we were, leaving a lot of room on the back end. Roxanne says, Ethan's Tech World. I really don't want any part of Clowney. I'd much rather see more Alton Robinson and Darrell Taylor than Clowney. I don't think Clowney's good at all. Maybe good for like 2 games out of the year. So yeah, Clowney's definitely got some injury concerns, Ethan, and I can wrap my head around and understand why nobody would want him here for the injury aspect of things. Check. There we go. Got it back. Microphone went weird there. The one thing I'll say about the Clowney thing is this: I don't want to rely on Alton Robinson and Darrell Taylor, Eaton's Tech World. I don't want to rely on young guys for vital pass rush next year. I don't want to say Darrell Taylor is going to be our starting Leo next year, and we know for sure he's going to get us 10 sacks. He didn't even get on the football field last year. And Alton Robinson, as good a year as he had last year, was 4 sacks. It's not like he tore the world apart, like he set the world aflame, you know? So I'm just not interested in relying on those young guys. It doesn't have to be Clowney for me, Ethan. I just want 2 of some of those veteran guys that are out there. So it can be Carlos Dunlap and Kerrigan, or Justin Houston and Dunlap. It can be any kind of mix. And I think if you have a Dunlap on the forefront and then you go get a Clowney, you can take that risk of the Clowney's injury risks because you have a certainty in Dunlap at that point. And again, acknowledging that none of these guys are going to cost a lot of money, Ethan. None of these guys are going to break the bank. So that's what really gets me kind of interested in it from that respect of things. Randall says, I wonder if some of the Russ drama might Pete in front office trying to light a fire under his ass. Maybe Russ got too comfy. Could be. It seemed like somebody in some part of this process was trying to light a fire under someone. I don't know if it's Russ lighting it under the front office now firing back, lighting it under him, or they're both lighting fires under each other's asses. I don't know which it is. But there was certainly some of that going on in this back and forth that occurred kind of publicly in the media. Absolutely, you know. And maybe they just got a lot of truth out that they couldn't get out together when they're talking behind closed doors. They were somehow able to just speak more freely and openly with through the media. Kind of be weird if that was the case, but it seems like a little bit of that's what's happened here. Seahawks Network, how far do NFL GMs scout and other roster evaluators project into the future for the draft and free agency? It's usually a 3 years out. They've got a 3-year plan, Seahawks Network. You know, you're hard pressed to go much further than that because most front offices don't have the type of job assurances that Pete and John have here. They're not under any hot seat. Their seats aren't even warm. Their seats are ice cold. You know, most coaches and general managers are sort of on the year-by-year basis, so it's hard for them to have a multi-year plan unless they've just been hired on. But probably a 3-year plan for those teams that are like your Baltimore Ravens types or Kansas City Chiefs types or Seahawks types, Packers types that do operate with a forward-projecting manner. Terrence Lynn says, I've been here for a while but never commented. Oh, well, cool, man. I appreciate you commenting. Thanks for watching. I do appreciate. XE Dubstep, go Hawks. These signings have been great. Exactly. Now let's go get an edge and a center. I'd like for the center to come in the draft, XE, but yep, I think as we're all talking about right now, we want to see, we're all at the top of the list of saying, let's go get ourselves now another edge. I'd like to see 2 edges myself. That's where we could go with this. So, and again, get that cap space from next year. But yeah, I think we're all liking the signings, XE. I think that's what we've gotten as far as from everybody here in the chat. And what I've seen over the last couple of streams that I've done is that everybody's been pretty unanimous in liking these moves. Whereas last year, a lot of us were back and forth on, this is not going to get it done. This isn't going to get it. These are the steps in the direction to getting it done. It hasn't fully accomplished that yet. There's more to be done here. But I've said what they needed to do is knock it out of the park with every move they make this offseason. Not have the same misses of not have the BJ Finney miss of last year, or the Bruce Irvin, which ended up being a miss from last year, or the Dunbar move, which turned into a miss from last year. You need to hit these out of the park. And at least for now, as we stand, none of these are bad moves. None of these are moves I can pick apart or hate on. All of them have a lot of upside. All of them seem pretty smartly constructed. I'm a little worried with the one-year nature of so many of these deals. That's the part that's got me a little bit up in arms of, I'd like to get a couple of these guys onto a multi-year deal, even just to move the same money, have them make the same money, but just move it to a bonus on a second year, eat the bonus next year so we can create some cap space in the now. That would be, to me, the advantageous way to move here. Seahawks Network, Clowney and Dunlap on early downs, Taylor and Robinson on passing downs, and mix in Clowney and Dunlap on passing downs. you got your potential NASCAR package. Agreed. And you could even float in, I think you could even put if you get more solid on the edge, you got Taylor Robinson on your edges at that point. There's even some times where I think you could move Clowney in at the defensive tackle where he can rush from the inside. You didn't do it last time because you had nobody behind him as a defensive end, but he's done some of that spinner roll from a 3-4 going up over the A gap and just attacking up over the guard in the center. You could do a little bit of that with him as well. UE2K says, think Dunlap and Kerrigan make the most sense. Kerrigan will be cheaper than Clowney, and I believe he was replaced by youth more than injury. Agreed, UE2K. Agreed. He wasn't getting Montez Sweat and Chase Young off the football field, so that wasn't about him or where he was at. Those are upper-level talented players, some of the better up-and-coming pass rushers in this game. And I do agree with you. Kerrigan will probably cost a little bit less than Clowney will, though I don't know that Clowney's getting paid a whole hell of a lot coming off of 2 injury-prone seasons over the last 2 years. What is he really going to make when his market was so depressed all through last season to the point that he had to wait until the very last minute to even sign in for anything decent? Seahawks Network, I'm not as high on Kerrigan like others, but just my opinion. I think he could be a good functional pass rush. Not going to light the world on fire, but if you keep it on a rotational basis, keep his snaps low, he can be a pretty good player for you. Tommy Eden says 5-head move. John Snyder with Green Bay connection trades Russ for Rodgers straight up. Then we flip Rodgers to Jacksonville. Seahawks for the first overall pick and get Lawrence. Kidding. Love Russ. Go Hawks. That would be crazy, man. That'd be wild. That'd be buck wild. UGK, Russ definitely lit a fire under the Seahawks. Otherwise, they wouldn't have taken on a contract like Gabe Jackson's. I think that there's probably something to be said for that, Huey. I mean, Gabe Jackson at this point is a better probably pass protector than he's a run blocker. And this has not been the recent history of the Seahawks front office and Coach Carroll to favor pass blockers first and run blockers second. Every time they look at an offensive lineman, it seems they're always making the decision with, can he run block first and foremost? And then whatever he gives us pass protection wise is just going to be, just a bonus, extra. So I think that there's a little bit for that to be said on that. There is. Oh, Stephen Donovan Shorts, thank you for the $10 donation, sir. You're very kind. I appreciate you, my man. Appreciate you so much. Thank you. Very kind of you. Didn't have anything to say, just throwing the $10 dono. Thank you so much, man. Got to my Sean thing. Clowney can play more than just defensive end pass rusher. He can play inside on NASCAR packages and set an edge on first down. It's just getting on the field. That's it. He provides a lot of value if you can get him on the field. He can do a lot of different things off that defensive line, as you said. So, yeah. Insidious, I rather have Alden Smith than Clowney. Clowney didn't do anything last year and barely the other Smith balled out. And Smith did okay. I mean, Smith definitely through the back half of the year didn't have as much of an impact as he did out the gate. Seemed to wear down a little bit. Clowney did do pretty good early. I know everyone loves their sack numbers, and that's what they're going to get. Everybody, when they're making a judgment on an edge rusher, it's always going to come down to sacks. I'm more about pressures, quarterback hits, utilize your eye test to tell you what the player's doing on the football field. And the couple of times that I watched the Titans play last year with Clowney on the field, he was consistently getting pressure. He was consistently getting to the quarterback. At that time, he was the only player on that defensive line really getting pressure. Jeffrey Simmons gave him a little bit, but other than that, nobody was getting any kind of pressure other than him. So again, he was getting double teamed even early on in the season quite a bit last year with the Titans. I think that that's a little bit of it. But again, I can't argue with the folks who say, look, I don't want to deal with Clowney's injury situation. It's a valid thing to point to. It's a valid thing to say, well, this is something that's going to follow him throughout his career. You'll never get a healthy Clowney. Stop thinking about his number 1 overall draft pick. It isn't going to ever be a thing. Valid, understood, got it. I can't fight that. So I understand where you're coming from there. Ethan's Tech World. Initially, I wasn't happy about the Carson signing because I don't have the best confidence in him, specifically in Waldron's scheme. However, with the contract structure details, it really did change my mind. Same with me, Ethan. Out the gate, I was doing a thumbs down on this because I was hearing $7 million a season. You see it at $2.5 million on a first-year cap hit in a season that you want to see them go for it, go for the Super Bowl, squeeze as many players under the cap as you can. This accomplishes that. It's hard to pick that move apart at that point. And you're going to need some inside running as much as outside running is featured in this scheme. Inside running is also utilized. Cam Akers, some of his biggest runs last season came when he was running between the tackles. So it is going to still be a big part of their game, utilizing that. There's room for it in this scheme, absolutely. Patriot Sports Cards, how you doing? Welcome. Dunlap is a 4-down defensive end. Dunlap is a 4-down defensive end. Why do I? He can stop the run really well. I'd like to try to limit his snaps a little bit next year to keep him in more pass rush only situations. Use him in the run game when you really absolutely need. But with a guy like LJ Collier, the one thing he does do at the 4-tech, 5-tech there at the left defensive end is he stops the run relatively well. He sets the edge relatively well. You wouldn't need Dunlap necessarily there as much on the early down, especially if Collier can continue to develop that side of his game. So I just want to keep his snaps down. That's more of what I'm thinking of with it. Just keeping him in that rotational, 60% of the snaps. That's what we did in those NASCAR era days. None of those guys were playing 80, 90% of the snaps. Randall McDaniel, $10 donation as well, Randall. Thank you, my guy. Appreciate you guys. Thanks for the $10 dono. He says, I just hope we sign Snacks in 2021. Joking. Yeah, probably Snacks ain't coming back if he gets asked to release mid-year, but that was an odd one. Didn't end up burning us because he went to Green Bay and he wasn't able to push them over the top there, but that one was a head scratcher at the time when it happened. He went, well, okay, I guess Brian Monet's awesome. But thank you, Stephen and Randall, for your $10 donations. I salute you, sirs. You are awesome men. Insidious, Dunlap and Smith is the correct answer. Forget all about bum-ass Clowney. Hey, surfer skis, Insidious. Surfer ski, man. I'll take any I can. You give me 2, I'm happy. I'm happier than a pig in mud. So you give me 2 of those guys. I don't care which one of the 2 it is. There's a couple other guys like Kerrigan, Houston, you can add in on that mix. Get me 2. I'm feeling mighty fine. Seahawks Network, why does everyone hate on Clowney? It's not like he missed half his career. This last year was an anomaly. Clowney is dominant. Facts. I'm sensing your sarcasm. Sensing it big time. Stephen Donovan meant to send a message with that. Wanted to say appreciate your thoughts on the Hawks, the time you spent answering us. Have a Rainier on me if you can find it over there. Lived on Oahu for a bit. Hard to find the Rainiers over here, that's for sure, Stephen, especially now with the new way that stuff's shipping over here, which we aren't getting a lot of shipments. The grocery stores tend to be about a quarter filled here at all times. It's pretty freaky, actually. But thank you. I appreciate your appreciations and appreciate you watching, man. Thank you for the donation. And, I love doing this. So I love talking Seahawks shops with you guys. It's always a good time. You guys always get me thinking on my team. And when I'm thinking Seahawks, I'm in my happiest state. Seahawks Network, he disrupts the game even when he's triple teamed. Well, I think he's, again, I know I've got a little bit of a confirmation bias with Clowney, but I still have room for him on my football team. If I get him at a discounted rate, if I don't have to commit to him for multiple years, if I got him on a prove-it deal, I've got room for Jadeveon Clowney on my team. Now, is he injury prone? Is it a risk at that point? Yeah. But part of getting a guy like Carlos Dunlap to me and part of having 4 young pass rushers that you're developing on your roster is that you've built in a little bit of insulation at that point for that risk. No biscuit if you don't risk it. Just ask Captain Fantastic there in Tampa Bay. Randall McDaniel, do you think we'll have rookie camp OTAs this offseason? Got to assume players getting fast track for the vaccine. Probably the vaccine is going to factor in a bit of whether or not that happens, Randall. Probably not the rookie, but probably OTAs. So they probably skip over the rookie stuff and just go right to the OTAs on it. But there's going to be something this offseason. I think a little bit. It'll be truncated and they'll be reduced. But they'll go through some aspects with that, I'm sure. Why do I? Agreed with the vets being role players. It's just Pete loves guys that can do everything. So another reason Seattle goes and gets him. Pete does. Yeah, Pete does tend to do that. I will go back on why. If you look at the snap counts back in 2013, 2014, when on early downs you could trot out Brandon Mabane and Tony McDaniel as your 2 defensive tackles. And while, Cliff Averill would play a good amount, you could still rotate Averill out for a Bruce Irvin, and Michael Bennett the same way, where, you could rotate him out. You always had another. Even in the Super Bowl year, they had O'Brien Schofeld coming in and being a rotational rusher at times. They've always kept, usually when they're at their best, a good rotation of rushers. I think over recent years it's gone away, but it's gone away as much because they've had to. They just haven't had the collection of bodies they once had. And specifically, they have not gotten the development out of the young players that they counted on getting. None of the young guys have popped since basically Frank Clark is a pass rusher, and they've been left with I guess we got to find stopgaps because of this. So I think you get a little bit more development of a couple young guys if they really address the position in the way they need to. The other thing with it is that they've half measured the approach on their defensive ends. They went in an offseason. They went 2 years ago. They went, okay, LJ Collier and Ziggy Ansah are going to be enough to fix our pass rush after we lose Frank Clark out the door. I mean, that was a quarter measure if I've ever seen one for a thing that required a full measure. And last year, the same way last year. They made the same exact mistake and then the next year, where you go in free agency and you sign Benson Mayo and Bruce Irvin and say that's the equivalent of Jadeveon Clowney, and then we'll draft Darrell Taylor, and hey, we're fixed at pass rush. So they just have to correct the mistake they've made recently in the past of that's not enough, that's not going to get the job done. Come on, guys. And I think they will this offseason because the players are available to make it done this offseason too. There's more pass rushers who are not going to get paid, who are going to have to take depressed deals than ever before. That just opens that door wider for them to finally go back to trying to make it happen again. UE2K, Clowney, like Carson and Penny, are talented, but tired of watching best players at a position in street clothes and once again playing the what-if game. No more porcelain dolls. Pretty, but easily broken. Understood. And like I said, I can't take that argument apart, 2K, because it's a valid reason to not want to be in and there on Clowney. I completely understand that. Other than his rookie season, he played 13 plus games every year. They're just minor injuries. I don't care if he misses 2 to 3 games every year. I'll take 8 dominant games than 16 so-so games from Aldon Smith. Yeah, I see where you're coming on that. I think Aldon could be, grounding in rotation. I think they're very similar players at this point in time, but probably Clowney's a little bit better in run stuffing. He's got some maybe Alden's better as a pass rusher. But it is kind of fact check works. I mean, the things the Seahawks networks, he's had a couple of years in his career where it's first year with the knee. He's had the Seahawks thing with the abdominal thing. He wasn't seemingly I think as good once he came back from that abdominal. But he doesn't scare me, Seahawks network. I'm with you. So the injuries aren't freaking me out. I'll bring him aboard. I'm not scared off by it. I'm not defending how Pete looks at personnel. I'm just pointing it out. Yeah, no, I got what you're saying. Why do I? I get what you're saying. And I understand. They've definitely used players where it's been that way recently, where they want the full down guys. That's what they're looking for. Random McDaniel, what would I offer Clowney? If we're talking about a 1-year deal, I'd offer him like a $6 million deal on a 1-year deal. If we're talking about structuring him into a 2-year deal, I'd do like a 2-year, $14 million deal, and then lower down his base year hit to like a $5 million hit, $4 million hit. I would probably try to swing something like that or so. That'd be about right where I'd be on it, right in about there. So, yeah, I don't think that costs too much. But I do think Kerrigan probably comes in at like $3 million, $4 million, somebody said. So he's a lot lower on that. Aldon Smith probably comes in right about that same point, maybe a hairpin lower, but right about that same spot, I would say. You got to be right on it there. All right, so I am going to do, I think, just a shorter stream today. Let's get in the last of our questions for today. I got to go do some family obligations out there. I will be back on Thursday of this week on the next live stream show. So we will be pushing that. I'll try to get another podcast out too on the Apple side of things. Make sure though, just pop in any kind of last thoughts you might have on in it. I do appreciate you guys jumping in on a Sunday here, hopping in and doing it. You guys have been so great with the support. We just launched right past 4,000 subscribers, man. We were just cooking. So thank you for all you new subscribers jumping aboard here too. Appreciate that. Insidious says, don't get me wrong, Clowney's a solid player, but the man can't get on the field. I think it's been a while since he's played a full season. Aldon Smith just came back to the league. He's fresh, just rusty. Yep. And it's a factor that I got to say is it's Seahawks Network, I think has got a point in saying that he hasn't exactly like throughout his whole career, every year it's like I'm missing a whole season. The last 2 years have been the worst of it. And he had been relatively good health-wise prior to that. It's a matter of I get Clowney and I might have to miss him for a couple games this season, but I get 13 games of better play than what I could get out of Aldon Smith. I'll take the 13 games, as the Seahawks Network said. But again, Aldon Smith, I think, is a guy who you pointed out to on that Insidious too. He was rusty last year, coming back first time he's played in many years, wore down as the year went along because he's getting his conditioning and his health kind of fully back to right. So he does still have that ability to maybe tap back into that early top 10 potential that he was in the draft. So it's kind of splitting hairs between those two guys where I'm happy with either of them. I'm happy with either of them, especially if you can add either of them in addition to a Carlos Dunlap. I'm over the moon happy. I feel so much better about our defense and the potential of where our defense could be. So it's, and again, I can't knock anybody that doesn't want to touch on Clowney because of the injury. It makes sense. I understand where you're coming from on that. He has been beaten up a little bit. Tommy Eden, I like Clowney over Smith only because he's cheaper, but Clowney is pretty dominant against the run too. Yeah, he's probably one of the best, if not the best, edge run defenders in the game when he is able to play. The cat's going to knock down my camera here now. She's being a little... What are you doing? What are you doing? What's wrong? Can you wait? I'll be done in a second. Can you wait? Okay, come here. Don't knock out my mic, okay, please? Okay, come here. Oh my gosh, so needy. So needy. What time for the Thursday live stream? I will be on 3 Pacific Standard Time on Thursday for you guys. Or not 3 my time, sorry. No, I'll be at 5 o'clock. 5 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, your time. I was thinking about my time here. So 5 o'clock, Steve and I'll be on Thursday. Hopefully we've got some good news, like we signed Carlos Dunlap and we signed Javen Clowney. We made major trade. All that good stuff. Seahawks Network, I don't want Aldon Smith to disappear halfway through the season. I don't remember Aldon Smith causing Jimmy G's life to flash before his eyes. One of my favorite games. That was one of my favorite games too, Seahawks Network. That was an awesome game to watch. And he hit Jimmy G. Clowney did he gave him a, I was surprised Garoppolo got up from that. Garoppolo's a tough guy to get up from that hit. But I think Aldon Smith too wore down a little bit Seahawks Network last year because they didn't have a lot of depth, right? They traded away Everson Griffith at one point last year. DeMarcus Lawrence wasn't giving them a lot. They needed Aldon to play a lot of snaps last year, way more than he probably should have been asked to play. And once you get the guy up into 80, 85, 90% of the snaps, their production is going to wear down. We saw this with Jaron Reed last year where wasn't very effective early on in the season, playing 90% of the snaps. You get a little more depth on the defensive tackle position. You get a little bit more on the outside. Suddenly now his production goes up. He's playing more into that 70% snap ratio of things. That's a little more. You can study. They get more productive in that way. It takes a lot out of you, and playing that many snaps is just too much on a defense. So I think Aldon will be able to sustain a little bit better as we go into next year. That would be my guess. Ethan's Tech World, go back to run. We'll be run heavy. We'll be balanced this year. We'll be balanced. Randall says, we wait too long on pass rushers hoping to get a deal. Can't wait much longer or they get eaten up by other teams. Hopefully they've learned that lesson. It's another lesson to learn, Randall, in that you've tried to play the long game on some pass rushers recently and it hasn't worked exactly. But now is not the time to do that this year. And it's with the thing that gives me hope with this, Randall, is there's so many of these guys available right now in the market. There's a lot of these veteran guys, and there might be even more made available as we see more teams kind of maneuvering beneath the cap. So I don't think it's even done with the amount of players that are available or will be available throughout this offseason. So that's the thing that helps this happen and will make it happen, I think, is that there's just more of them. I think that's going to be the benefit this year. There should be more at a depressed value where you don't have to sign up to that something weird like a 4-year, $49 million deal or something. You get to do them on a 1-year or 2-year deals, and you get them at pretty cheap. So I like that. Roxanne, pussy always messing men's worlds up. They are. Pussy's always getting in the way. UE2K, right tackle center Robert Hainsey is a good fit. Can play OT and is in transitioning to center. Played center at Senior Bowl and looked very good. Swiss Army knife, OL, and 4-year starter. Well, you're on the right track there, 2K. I like Robert Hainsey. I watched a little bit of him. I got more tape I got to dive into. I just did a once through on him. But like you said, solid player, good player. Nothing, I can't knock anything with him as far as he's not got a lot of upside necessarily. He's going to be one of the league average, league starter type players. But again, we've had an offensive line over the course of recent years that's had a lot of guys on it that have been playing at below league average or god-awful level. And I don't think that he's going to be at that place of things. High floor guy that can come in and just kind of get the job done for you anywhere you kind of need on that line outside of, I'd say, probably left guard. So he's a good player, though, 2K. He's a guy I like quite a bit. I do. Seahawks Network, see you, Brandon. I'll hit you up about the video idea you have. Sounds good, buddy. I'll get back to you on that with Instagram, I promise. So we'll hit you up. Ethan's Tech World. I had a previous comment that went with the run comment. Definitely don't want to go back to the run. Laughing out loud. No, Ethan, I think the two specific places on the let Russ cook thing, which were beyond just giving him more attempts, having him throw down the field, was a little bit more of an ability to play up-tempo at times when Russ feels like he can take advantage of some things on the defensive side of the ball. And then the other aspect is throwing on first down. And what you saw over the recent years was Seattle was one of the more teams that was just stuck on running on first down at all times. We're going to run on first down. We're going to run on first down. We're going to run on first down. But they became so predictive in that they stopped being very effective on running in first down. And analytics tells us that you really should embrace throwing on first down because teams play to stopping the run so heavily defensively. Seattle flipped this script last year, started out throwing more on first down than they ever had a lot of great success from it, went away as the year went away from it. I think those are two things that, to your point, Ethan, need to become back into the offense. Up-tempo and a willingness to throw on first down. Better pass protection will help you so you don't get some of those first down sacks like we were. But up-tempo, I think, would also help with the throwing on first down as well. Quick first down, back of the line of scrimmage, run a quick pass play. So I'd like to see as well. I hope they don't go back to that boring style. We've seen enough of that between the ground knocks era in Seattle and the Coach Carroll era. We've had a lot of years of playing to the defense here in Seattle. Okay, well, we are good. I appreciate you guys always watching. I want to thank my Patreon members. We got Carmine Di Costanzo. Thank you, Carmine, for your patronage. And Emmanuel Mendehane. I appreciate you. You guys can see my Patreon link down there in the description if you want to support the channel. Other than that, we will be back on Thursday, 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, hopefully with some more signings. You guys are awesome as ever. You make these chats just so much fun for me to come in and just always have me thinking, always have me on my toes. A lot of positive energy here. I'm loving where everybody's mind is at. It's been a tough, tumultuous offseason, but I see a lot of optimism and glass is half full, which is good. That's how we should be. That's where we should be at. There's a lot to feel good about this team, and there's a lot to hope for in this next season. Seattle's making the right moves here. They're taking the right steps there to getting here. They got to still do more. We got to round this sucker out, but it's on the right path, man. We're on the right path. You have a great weekend as well, Ethan, Roxanne. You have a good one as well. I remember Chuck Knox's run, punt, or the change up, run for your life interception, Hawks Nest. That's right. Knox liked himself some 3 runs in a row. If we just get 3.5 yards, it's a first down every time. All right. Well, you all have a good one. I can see everyone's has the faith. I don't have to check anybody on the faith today. Everyone's got the faith. So I'm just going to say, in addition to that beautiful faith you all have and that tremendous vibes you guys are throwing out, thank you for all your support. Randall, thank you for your donation.